Meaning here in America, here, right matters.
From good things she bought extra, Rashida.
This one's a goner.
To always needs to end on a zero, Rashida.
Okay, you totally distracted me. That's not fair. What?
The new City Custom Cash Card automatically adjusts to where your spending is trending.
When you look at this suppression today, how much of it do you think is fundamentally racist, which echoes this whole march since the 60s, and how much of it is just bare-knuckle partisanship, which may or may not be legal, as we live through a time where democracy itself has been challenged so much?
What former President Trump saw in Georgia was that when people have access to the ballot box, communities turn out and they elected Democrats as senators from Georgia. And his response was, we're going to make it harder for black Georgians to vote and black Americans all over the country. And these efforts are not just targeted at black but other minority communities, Native Americans, and college students. And so it's a very targeted effect. They know that if they can force people to vote on election day, that there's time-tested strategies to make turnout low by reducing the number of precinct voting places, changing their location, putting where there's no parking, understaffing so people have to wait for 5 or 6 hours in line, putting out false information about the date and location. They know these things, and so they are trying to cheat Americans out of the right to vote. It is this
Nagasaki.
Black Americans. There is a fundamentally racist element to it.
And we've also been keeping an eye on this looming vote that we're told would be in the Congress here. I want to read about sort of slimming down that John Lewis Act. Chuck Schumer reportedly telling you and your caucus you have these voting rights votes within days, and that they would trim the ethics provisions from the original bill, scale back the mandates for automatic voter reg, excise a public campaign financing system for senators, which is a big deal, but kind of a separate issue, and backing off this attempt to change the composition of the FEC. It's a mouthful of what's cut out, and then by implication, there's still plenty left in the bill. What does this strategy mean of having a slimmed-down version? And what would your response be to some skeptics who might be watching tonight and say, well, if you're still waiting on Republicans and it's going to be that kind of thing, then how are you ever going to get any of this out without reforming the filibuster?
So there are 3 basic missions. One is to stop the dark money so that billionaires cannot
77, baby.
Fighting for the American public.
For using up fuel. Recycle! Reduce, reuse, recycle. Oh, your children are fucked.
Right now about basically gerrymandering on steroids. They know that in just 4 states they can gerrymander another 6 to 13.
War never changes, baby.
That would be a 26-vote swing in the House. They only feel like they have about a 15-seat advantage, that is a 30-seat swing as it is. The margin, which is 8 seats right now, should be about 38. But
they dropped the bomb. We dropped the bomb. They might drop the bomb on you. They dropped the bomb on me.
Vote by mail.
Baby.
Means making sure that people have access to election day as well. These things will all be well protected in the bill that we're producing. So you think of the first hurdle is we have to get a bill of 50 members of Congress. They come from very different systems of voting.
Yeah, go away.
National, state,
go away.
And these ends and that's what we're working on right now, and I think we've narrowed it down.
Estoy un señorita. Gracias, por favor. Oh no. No.
Away from Washington, this will be an intense effort by some of our colleagues to recruit Republicans to join us.
Hey, there you go.
They swore oath to the Constitution to defend
that looked like me.
And
if I was girly as shit.
Not have their support. Then we have to find a path us to get this done, unfortunately, without them. And I'm very confident.
Let's see. Makeup. I don't do makeup.
There's also kids. Everybody, a lot of people.
Shut up, nigga. I don't know you like that.
Choice to not get vaccinated, but it's not the kid's choice, right? If you're under 12 and you're in a school, you don't get to make that choice. So somebody else not vaccinated or not getting vaccinated could be making a very serious
natural. There you go.
Right, and for certain, right now, more than 4.2 million children have been tested positive for COVID. In early June, 1 out of every 3 teens who were hospitalized were admitted to the ICU, with 5%
You know,
required inpatient
that's what I'm talking
ventilation.
about.
If you look at the numbers that we have now,
Nope.
we're seeing tons of kids becoming
Cancel that
infected.
mess.
Literally last week,
Damage.
72,000 children were newly diagnosed with COVID-19. We do
Damn.
not have time to
Really?
Russian roulette with our children's lives. Everyone needs to
much.
get vaccinated
Oh,
and provide some
come on,
sort of
just a
guarantee
little,
to protect them.
a wee bit. On the cheek, man.
Is now Angie, and summer is the perfect time to book your next home project. From landscaping to lawn care to the project of your
Ew,
dreams.
that look like herpes, bitch.
And protects you with a happy
Why so serious?
Angie.com. Angie and done.
Now we
Oh
turn
man, can't be on the left. Oh no, too much
Big
stitching.
question.
Oh shit, hell no.
A lovely lady named Pat has gained a following online.
I just want a lost car. Oh
Her
my.
granddaughter shares
Oh
these
damn.
videos of her on TikTok showing her
Fuck
doing
that
everything from
bitch.
enjoying chocolate-covered marshmallows to showing how she keeps Kleenex handy in her walker. Well, now she's got a new video. It features Pat.
All I want was a wee bit of his scar. A wee bit of his scar. But no. So I'll be flawless, bitch, okay?
You can't last that.
Not like that outfit,
It's
but
just when will she be back?
there we go.
That's the question. When will she be
Back!
Okay. Okay.
I love this one.
Here
That
is
shit
a
funny.
Picture of her.
Fishing.
Rachel Maddow's page is a picture of her with a fish.
I could have told you that, bitch.
She's fishing somewhere? Yeah. I could have told you that.
Like, duh.
She,
Stupid bitch. Yeah, she really called her grandkid a stupid bitch because I hear it.
where she is.
That's none of your business.
It's her business where she is on her vacation. Not my business. So there.
Thanks, Cosmo.
Now, Pat could have told you she's fishing. You can see she also respects boundaries. She just wants to know, when will she be back? Well, I'm here to report live on MSNBC to Pat.
Uh-huh.
And the answer, Rachel will be back.
Looks
I
like the
can't-
milk got delivered.
From you touch it, you buy it.
It's a
Dan.
little early to be drinking.
I wasn't trying to drink. I was talking to your husband, bitch.
The new city council
Master Sean.
as to where your spending is trending.
As the Delta variant fuels a surge in new hospitalizations, hospitals are running out of a critical resource. There are simply not enough people to care for their patients. The Texas Tribune reports hospitals there are struggling with historically low staffing levels, writing, quote, there are 23,000 more unfilled jobs in Texas for registered nurses.
Because I'm fine as wine,
To
nigga.
fill that,
What?
according to Labor
Cosworth, my child.
Workforce Commission.
Hey, Sean, baby.
Specialties to leave the profession.
Who's my boy? That's my boy.
Better paying nursing jobs than
Remind me of Sims.
nurses and hospital officials say.
Can't make you evolve, though, baby.
Hospitals around the
I
country.
prefer toddlers than babies on Sims, because that motherfuckers be taking too much.
Back with us tonight, Dr. Ebony Hilton, an associate professor of anesthesiology at the University of Virginia.
Let's try that,
School of
buddy.
Medicine. She also hosts the podcast,
Like that?
The Word Unpacked. Dr. Hilton, good to see you.
Hello, Jugger, baby. So
This
cute.
is a serious problem. It was a serious problem all through COVID, where
Hey, Cotsworth.
there have been shortages of nurses in this country for a long time. But the burnout, the rate at which people were burning out or getting the infection last year was tremendous. Now we've got the same thing, and with the pressure to get vaccinated, we have some medical workers, some healthcare workers saying,
Hello.
Right. I think it's a combination of a number of different
Uh-huh.
things. For one, we are
What the fuck you want, bitch?
The nurses burnout. What we know is that every year, between 300 and 400 physicians before COVID were committing suicide. We're seeing not only this burnout of people not wanting to go to work, but we have to think about the mental health.
Have you now?
Of the respiratory therapists.
I just existed like 2 seconds ago.
Persons
Okay.
that are working directly with patients and seeing these deaths day in and day out. What does that do to your own mental
Bitch.
capacity, right? And then
You want a cookie?
when you go to work,
That's right.
you may become infected yourself. How does that make you
Mhm.
feel? And is there confidence that this will ever stop if we're not getting vaccinated?
Essence.
So on one hand, hospitals and doctors and employers in the medical field need to learn new things and be really sensitive to all of these things that you talked about that existed before COVID and as a result of COVID, where that burnout sort of came to the surface.
Yeah.
On the other hand,
Eleven.
the medical center who basically told everybody, get vaccinated.
Fucking stupid ass fault.
And they ended up losing some staff as a result. That's not something hospital groups across the country can actually afford to do, and yet we want these healthcare workers vaccinated.
Right. I mean, we know how the politics of this pandemic has played out. We see it in other industries. We look at teachers' unions and how they're struggling to get the teachers vaccinated. And it's the same thing within the hospital. But unfortunately, what we're seeing right now is
nuclear disaster, you fucking moron.
we only have a total of 6,000 hospitals within the United States of America.
Nope, let me bug you.
780,000 beds.
Yeah, tell them more.
600,000 of those beds are now in use.
Lies!
1,000 being of COVID patients. So we have to somehow find the will to press through this time here.
That is true.
But it will take an awakening of the hospital system to say, is this really provider burnout or is this provider abuse?
Yeah, full of shit though.
Are we really treating our healthcare workers like people? Are we feeding back into them and literally saying, are you taking care of yourself?
Damn right, bitch.
The workload
Nigga ain't trying to die.
that is
Like COVID.
responsible.
Ooh, that's my beautiful girl.
You're just a person too.
Dr. Ebony.
Responsible when you see the training that both
She is the bomb.
that it made sense.
Listen to her.
Do you agree with healthcare centers and hospitals insisting that their staff are vaccinated?
Ah, shit.
Certainly. At this point, because when I walk into the hospital, people are trusting me to do the very best I can do to take care of them. If I am not vaccinating myself, I know that I can become infected with COVID-19, and I know that I can infect someone who has tried to do their best to protect themselves by doing vaccinations and these simple public health measures, then I owe it to them. That's my job. That's my responsibility. So I will urge all the healthcare workers, this is not the time to play politics. We have patients' lives in consideration.
So,
It's best to have a little lip up. What the? What?
Florida,
Go.
which is breaking all records for its most COVID cases ever this week. Well, they're readying students to return to school Tuesday as war against masks. Some counties are pushing back against.
I'm not gonna call you Jordan today.
Still backing a mask rule at least.
I know I'm calling you.
At a time, like the opening weeks of school. Now, this is not a drill, and this is just not some theoretical exercise. The school leaders in Alachua County, Florida, are sharing their hardship, the evidence and the realities they're living through. 2 custodians who work in that very district just died of COVID. 80 of their fellow employees are quarantining right now.
Harley Quinzel.
And one leader says simply, if my adults are sick or needing to quarantine, then I don't have adults present to provide the education. Just as simple as that. And so that's where we begin tonight.
Yeah, you should have been.
And joining us now is Carly Simon, the superintendent of Alachua County Public Schools.
For you and
I know
Sean,
it's a tough time in
no
so many
price
ways,
is
so
too
first
high.
of all, thanks for making
That's right, baby.
Hey, hon. Can I have my mom?
Thank you for having me. I appreciate the time.
Tell us what you're doing and what you see as the best thing for the people involved in your schooling.
So we're focusing on making sure that we have workforce available to provide the education that we know our students need. We're very
That's my baby.
getting our students back in school on Tuesday. And because of what we're seeing in our COVID numbers with our staff,
Coochie, coochie,
we need to make
coochie.
some decisions. And so it started actually on Monday when we started.
Coochie, coochie, coo.
We still at that point hadn't even had teachers on campus. And just to give you some context, the last 3 weeks, our COVID cases are as much as the last 5 months combined. And for this reason, we decided.
Hey, we can't be a bitch to your husband, girl.
For all of our
We're coming. It ain't gonna be good. Shit's fucked up.
Also, we're in incentivizing the vaccinations, because although the mask will help with prevention, really the goal is to get vaccinated. And so we have an incentive for individuals who have been vaccinated, as well as any individual who is vaccinated.
They dropped the bomb on me.
So because we understand
Baby,
our staff
they dropped the bomb on me.
to be vaccinated, not only are they helping their own personal safety and their family, but they also help
Damn, NY.
our education community. And one of the things we are offering is that we'll also provide
Please stand by.
for vaccinated staff if they have a breakthrough of the Delta variant.
Alright, cool.
And the goal is to
Get my run, niggas, run!
keeping our workforce functioning so we can provide the education to our students. On Tuesday, our board listened for quite a few hours to medical professionals from our community. One of the benefits of Alachua County Schools is that
Leave the bags. Who cares?
and we have medical professionals.
Go!
Hey there.
World-renowned experts on pediatrics as well as immunology and epidemiology, and they've been giving us guidance and consulting with us. And after their presentations at the board was compelled to vote unanimously 4-0 to approve the mask mandate. We're hoping to revisit this in 2 weeks, so the mandate is for the first 2 weeks of school, and then what will end up happening is we'll look at the data, and we'll determine from the data, and consult with our professionals again, and decide if we needed to extend this. We are concerned about
what's going to happen to all those people outside the gate? Everything we can. Now keep moving.
Right. And that really makes sense. Anyone listening can
Look at this beautiful place.
The Republican Governor DeSantis really clashing with you and says this is, in his view, you overriding the parents of the system that you serve. Take a listen.
Almost there. Is Sean okay?
He's fine. We're going to be okay.
My little nigga's a G. He sleep.
Oh my God!
And we obviously have an executive order to that effect. Alachua County can't override the parents. I think that's pretty clear from the Parents' Bill of Rights that I signed, and quite frankly, I think that that's the right thing to do anyways.
I've got
Damn.
so with about 30 seconds, I did want to give you the benefit of your response.
I still never get over this shit.
So we do believe in choice as well, and that is one of the benefits of the rulemaking process that occurred today with the governor and the Department of Health and the Department of Education, is that they provided an additional layer of choice by
Mr. Russell,
family members to utilize a Hope Scholarship.
Mr. Abel, Mrs. Abel,
Another school or a school district that would provide them the type of environment that
Whitfield, this is Whitfield.
on top of that, for our own
Lion sack. Oh shit.
medical exemption where they can have a medical
Lies.
provider determine if the child can be exempt from having a mask. And then of course we have choice options that have existed for quite some time in the state of Florida. And so I believe we are offering choice, but we are also making sure
Can't be trusted.
our Constitution
None of y'all could be trusted.
to provide a safe, high-quality education to all students.
Superintendent
Fuck
Sussman
you.
did a big job right in the middle of all this. Thank you for your time.
Just follow the doctor here. He'll show
I
you
guess
where to go.
the White House would love for this to happen in some way other than a federal mandate.
Hey, lion.
Perspective. Obviously, all of it will
Lies.
but companies seem to be on stronger footing with being able to say, hey, we can't endanger our clients, we can't endanger our fellow workers.
This way.
Yeah, I think that's right. I don't necessarily think they have to wait until full licensure. I think the EOC said they can go ahead and do it now. And I would really like insurance companies to get serious about, after a certain date that can be determined, that people are going to have to pay more for their insurance if they don't get vaccinated.
What is this mess?
When people don't get vaccinated and they get sick,
Huh?
it raises health insurance costs for all of us.
What is this? Sir, sir.
They can be charged more, so should be.
Hey, look, it's my husband.
Vaccination, because it's not only
Lies.
a threat to everyone else's health, and incredibly selfish in my opinion, but it's also a financial burden on our entire healthcare system that can hardly afford it.
Introducing the biggest dreamers
Excuse me.
on this side.
Shut up. Mm-hmm. Lies.
Excuse me. Excuse me.
Once again, I'm
No.
in for Brian Williams. Day 199 of the Biden administration, as the Delta variant races through all 50 states, driving new case numbers upward. The president is signaling a possible shift to a much more aggressive campaign to stop the
Who's
surge.
my little guy, huh?
I put
I'm
in
not going
place
far.
new incentives and requirements
I'll
to
just
encourage
be over there.
vaccinations. There will be more to come in the days ahead. America can beat the Delta variant,
Excuse me.
just as we beat the original COVID-19.
Florida is now the undisputed epicenter of this latest outbreak. Today, nearly 23,000 new COVID cases were reported.
That is not a decontamination pod.
Since the
I don't trust you.
Dr. Anthony Fauci says Florida now accounts for
I bet you do.
a portion of the new cases across the country.
Florida itself is about 20% of the infections, so that is
This don't look right to me. That's all I'm saying.
that right now, given the fact that we have highly effective vaccines that are safe.
Today, Florida's Republican governor was asked about the case surge in his state.
Bullshit.
You have some politicians that say, I am going to eliminate the virus, I will defeat it. Unfortunately, government can't just end it, so we knew this is something that...
Fuck you, you lying bitch. You are full of shit.
You're going to have to live with. There was some progress reported today by the White House. The nation has passed an important new milestone. 50% of all Americans are now fully vaccinated, and another major corporation has joined the list of those issuing vaccine mandates for employees. United Airlines is requiring its 67,000 U.S. employees to be vaccinated by this fall. It's the first major airline to take this step. Amazon says all workers at its U.S. warehouses will be required to wear masks on the job starting Monday. New Jersey's governor is ordering all students, teachers, staff members, and visitors to wear masks inside of schools once classes begin next month. And a judge in Arkansas today temporarily blocked the state from enforcing its ban on mask mandates. That ruling came after lawmakers had adjourned a special session called by the Arkansas Republican governor. He wanted them to consider rolling back the ban for some schools as COVID cases continue to climb in that state. And then there's this weekend's big event in South Dakota, the popular Sturgis Rally. It's a motorcycle rally.
Trifling.
It's expected to draw close to...
I don't appreciate this shit.
Cyclists.
What are y'all doing to my family, bro?
Even more severe, especially once those at the rally head back to their home states. Where are we now? We've got the administration...
Get my child.
Aggressive agenda. The vaccine out there. We've got people like Ron DeSantis pushing back. We've got a Delta variant that continues to spread across this country at great speed.
Yeah, Ellie, look, the efforts for vaccination must continue, need to even accelerate as much as possible, mandates, whatever we can do, but that's not going to make a dent in the acceleration of cases we're seeing today. And as you mentioned, Florida and...
Oh, you're a fucking dead man. Best believe.
We're seeing now hospitals that are so overwhelmed in those two very large populous states that they're having to send patients out of state just simply to get adequate care. So you add all of this up, and the fact that we're starting schools, some have already started, but a majority of schools starting in the next 2 to 3 weeks, and pediatric cases on the rise, this is just a powder keg.
Damn you, Florida. Damn you.
What we're bracing for is when will this descent happen? And we look to other countries, the UK, Netherlands, where they have had steep descents despite Delta kind of taking a hold. And we're hoping we can follow that pattern, but we're looking at least 2 to 4 more weeks of this type of precipitous increase until we crest and then come down. And honestly, Allie, there's going to be a lot of death and hospitalizations along the way, and largely preventable.
You mentioned mandates. The government, as we saw between the White House and Ron DeSantis, they're not looking for direct conversations and confrontations with a lot of these states. However, a number of companies are stepping up. They're saying either their workers have to be mandated or have to be masked. And some are even insisting that customers and clients be vaccinated. Is American business going to put this over the top?
Yeah, I think that American business, private sector can say what you will. And by the way, Allie, I can tell you that the conversations between the public and private sectors are absolutely ongoing and will continue, because you bet that people inside the White House are talking to these companies to express their support, even though they can't actually technically issue a mandate over these private companies. So this is going to be the way. We're also you're seeing teachers unions and others around the country starting to express support for a possible school-based vaccine mandate. kind of if they're available and when they're available for children and when they're
That's some bullshit.
not under emergency authorization. And that resulted, obviously, in the kind of pressure on the FDA, which announced that they would likely have an approval in the next several weeks. So you can see this kind of sequencing. If there's an approval in the next 4 to 6 weeks, and then full licensure in the next 4 to 6 weeks, and then you have the ability to kind of fully express a mandate, you stitch together, hopefully close to 80 to 85% of the country either vaccinated or with some degree of immunity by infection. And that might be our best way, Allie, to get to that kind of notion of herd immunity, but we can't get there fast enough. We got to do it before the Lambda variant, which is worrying a lot of us, can take their foothold after the Delta variant.
There's a project the late, great Congressman John Lewis was working on in his final days. Run, Book 1, a graphic novel he helped create, illustrates Congressman Lewis's story and the story of the civil rights movement after the Voting Rights Act was signed into law 56 years ago today. Congressman Lewis wanted the graphic novel to inspire future generations to remain involved in the democratic process. Joining us now is Andrew Iden, co-author of Run, Book 1. He is a digital director and policy advisor in the U.S. House of Representatives and served Congressman Lewis's office for 13 years. Andrew, thank you for coming to the last word. What's the one event from post-1965 civil rights, the civil rights fight, you think people should know about?
I think people forget that 2 days after the Voting Rights Act was signed into law, John Lewis went down to Americus, Georgia, and he protested a church because it was still segregated. And he got arrested and he went to jail. And that same night in Americus, the Klan held their largest hooded march that they held in decades. And it shows exactly how quickly the pushback was coming about to the Voting Rights Act's passage.
And what message would Congressman Lewis have for the Texas state representatives who are in Washington still, right now, fighting the Texas voter suppression bill?
Congressman Lewis would tell them to keep pushing, keep fighting. Don't get down. It's going to be a hard struggle, but you got to keep pushing for those left out and left behind. And so he would say, keep going. You've got this. He would love what they're doing, and I think this would be something that would be very meaningful for him to witness.
And what was the saying, Andrew? Never give up, never give in.
Never give up, never give in, never give out. Keep the faith and keep your eyes on the prize. Sorry, I've spent so much time with him over the years.
I'm so glad. I'm glad I asked you that question, and I'm doubly glad that you actually did the impression, because that tells me that you really know the man, because that was part of his repertoire. In the literally 1 minute we have left. What's your favorite memory of Congressman Lewis?
There's so many, but I think the one that I remember most is anytime something went well. Like after we found out, March had been on the New York Times bestseller list, or when we got a great review or something like that from one of the books, Congressman and I would celebrate with a Coke with grenadine. Because, he didn't have many vices, but he did have a bit of a sweet tooth, and he loved that. And so that's what we would celebrate with.
There is a light that has been passed from generation to generation, illuminating the very best of us, and reminding the world that we are stronger together.
Congressman Williams, let me start with you. One, do you have any scuttle on what's happening in the Senate right now when it comes to voting rights?
Jonathan, I wish I knew exactly what was going on in the Senate. Unfortunately, the good people of Georgia elected me to represent the 5th Congressional District. Right now, I am sitting with Flintstone by John Lewis, working very late with my team here. And we just had a conversation today with Ambassador Andrew Young. He came in to give my team a pep talk about what it means to serve this very special district. And we haven't given up hope. We're still calling on the Senate to do what they know needs to be done. This should not be a partisan issue. This should be about democracy, about standardizing the right to vote and making sure that everyone in our country has access to the ballot. So I am still hopeful, but I know that I have to be resilient and with that hope and continue to do the work. Congressman Lewis taught us to dramatize the moment, and that's what you've seen by the marches, by the arrests that are happening on the Hill, and by the conversations that are continuing to happen, and by my friends from Texas who fled their homes to make sure that we could have the right to vote. We're dramatizing the moment because that power doesn't seem yet to be there, but we started with the election in Georgia, and we're going to continue giving power to the people until we get this done.
Well, before I go to Representative Hinojosa, I wanted to ask you, my follow-up question was going to be, how impactful has it been to have the Texas Democratic delegation from the Texas state legislature in Washington all this time pushing on voting rights?
So I think when they initially fled, people saw it on the news and didn't really think how long it would last. I flew back early in a week that I wasn't even in Washington just to host my friends in Texas, my co-conspirators for justice for dinner, to talk about what our next steps were, what needed to be done. You've seen them meet with the vice president, and more people are paying attention. And I think people expected this to be just a moment on the map that was a social media hit and then it was done. But they're still there, giving up everything at home to make sure that we can press forward.
No, stupid shit. Hey, you look dumb.
Needs to be stopped.
He maimed 24 victims and got away with it.
The system is broken.
You know what I do for a living?
Come on. Hate this sometimes. Get out. Up. Up, 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 up. Let's go, let's go, let's go. Slow mo.
What is your message to governors like Governor DeSantis in Florida and Governor Abbott of Texas who have banned mask mandates?
You know, don't be the reason why schools are interrupted. Our kids have suffered enough. I'm worried that decisions that are being made that are not putting students at the center and student health and safety at the center is going to be why schools may be disrupted. So we know what to do. You know, don't be the reason why schools are disrupted because of the politicization of this effort to reopen schools. We know what works. We have to keep our students safe. We have to keep our educators safe.
That was yesterday at the White House, and that man joins us now, U.S. Secretary of Education Miguel Cardona. Mr. Secretary, it's great to have you with us this morning. We just had Governor Larry Hogan of Maryland on, Republican governor, who said, I'm going to leave the mask mandate question up to individual elected school boards. What do you say to those governors, just to build on what your comments yesterday there at the podium of the White House? What do you say to those governors who say this is a choice for parents, not for government?
Thank you for having me, first of all. Thank you, Governor Hogan. You know, first and foremost, we're going back to school. Students across the country are excited. Educators are excited. You know, that back-to-school feeling that we have as parents, as educators, is alive and well. And we have to do everything in our power to make sure that we're utilizing those mitigation strategies and the strategies that we know work to keep students and staff in school safe and thriving.
Would it be your recommendation, Mr. Secretary, that teachers get vaccinated?
Punch him.
Everyone above the age of 12
Golly.
as soon as possible. We know that's the best tool. We know it's safe. It's the best tool to keep the spread of COVID-19 low and to ensure that we can return to some level of normalcy. But until then, we have to follow those mitigation strategies to make sure that our students are sitting behind a computer for part or the full year. We have the tools, we have the resources, we know what to do. Vaccination is a big part of our recovery as a country.
And if we're leaving mass decisions up to individual school districts, should school districts be allowed to ask teachers to be required to get the vaccine?
You know, in terms of requiring vaccinations, I really lean very heavily on our health and safety experts.
Oh, I need that.
Whether or not it should be required based on spread and efficacy. I know FDA hasn't done their final ruling, and we have to respect that process so that we can have confidence in it. But as an educator, as a parent, I'm encouraging all who have the eligibility to get vaccines to get vaccinated. We know it works. We know in those communities where vaccination rates are higher, there's less spread, and there's the ability to engage in normal activity more so than those places that have low vaccinations.
What is your message, Mr. Secretary, to parents of children under the age of 12 who obviously have not had the opportunity to be vaccinated yet, who are nervous, frankly? They were excited maybe at the beginning of the summer, things were looking good, but now with the emergence of this Delta variant, they worry about their unvaccinated child going back to school. What do you say to them?
Yeah, to those parents, what I would say is, listen, I'm a parent too, and I would not put my children in harm's way either. And we know it works. We know we opened schools last year safely because we followed those mitigation strategies. We left the politics out of the decisions, and we did what's right for students. And this is possible again. And to those parents, I would also say, think about the impact of students not being engaged with their peers, with their teachers, and not being able to learn the way children learn in the classroom.
Yeah, I lied about it, bitch.
Good morning, John from Lemire. Can you walk us through a little bit here of how the federal government is directing money to the states to get these schools to be open? We've heard the president say for months now that he wants schools to be open. You were reiterating that today. But will there be conditions or requirements attached to some of that money? We've heard the president really go back and forth with Governor DeSantis this week about masks, mandates in schools and such. Will there be conditions attached to federal funds for these to help schools stay open regarding whether it's masks or vaccines or other mitigation efforts to keep the spread of coronavirus away from kids and teachers?
Thank you. Yes, we're thrilled that the unprecedented resources in the American Rescue Plan provide $130 billion to our states so that they can ensure a safe reopening and have the tools that they need to make sure students and staff can enter our schools safely and have a better experience than they did even before March 2020. We've also provided handbooks and the Return to School Roadmap, which really outlines steps schools should take to make sure students are safe, make sure that the social and emotional well-being are taken into account, and make sure that academic excellence is expected. However, we don't have the authority to mandate masks or to require vaccinations. At this point, we're working very closely with the states. I've had conversations with governors, with state chiefs, and educators across the country to promote those best practices that we know work. But, you know, we're not mandated. We don't have the authority to mandate masks. But quite frankly, most districts understand the importance of those mitigation strategies because they used them last year. So we're working with states. We're having conversations daily. And we're also paying attention to those places that are not following what we know works and the potential impact that can have on students and their safety.
As you say, you can't require vaccinations, but you're certainly recommending it in this plan for anyone aged 12 and older, that includes students and teachers. Secretary of Education, Miguel Cardona, thank you very much for your time this morning, sir. We appreciate it.
Introducing the biggest dreamers of the summer, the fastest, the strongest, the greatest, coming together to give you the greatest show you've ever seen. The Tokyo Olympics on NBC.
Just two states, Florida and Texas, account for 1/3 of all new COVID-19 cases in the entire country. I say to these governors, please help. If you aren't going to help, at least get out of the way.
Joe Biden has taken to himself to try to single out Florida over COVID. What is his big solution? What is he so upset about Florida? His solution is he wants to have the government force kindergartners to wear masks in school. He thinks that should be a decision for the government. Well, I can tell you in Florida, the parents are going to be the ones in charge of that decision. So why don't you do your job? Why don't you get this border secure? And until you do that, I don't want to hear a blip about COVID from you.
DeSantis, who is using your words about don't be in the way, and he's saying, I am in the way to block too much interference from the federal government. Your response, Mr. President? DeSantis?
That was President Biden's reaction to Florida's Republican Governor Ron DeSantis, and really his petulant, childish response to not just the president but other people concerned that Ron DeSantis is passing top-down mandates, forcing people, whether it's small businesses in Florida, to not be able to protect themselves, or school boards not be able to protect themselves. He's trying to run COVID like an emperor out of Tallahassee, Florida. That just, one size does not fit all 67 counties, but Ron DeSantis acting like a socialist, thinking it does.
And of course, there's irony in him complaining about the top down from the White House giving orders where he's going from the top down, and the State House telling school districts what they can and can't do. Obviously, those districts are all different. There are many who say, we're going to go ahead with our mask mandate, even if you are threatening to take away our public funding. There's a big problem in Florida right now. We'll get right to those COVID infections, hospitalizations, deaths, all climbing as the Delta variant continues to spread across the country.
Felix moments ago finished third in the 400 meter. The bronze is her 10th Olympics medal and earns her the title of the most decorated female Olympian in track and field history. The 35-year-old will have another chance at another medal on Saturday when she competes in the 400-meter relay. That would make her the most decorated American track and field athlete ever. And before today's race, NBC's Lester Holt sat down with a five-time Olympian.
Allison Felix says her fifth Olympics is about a lot more than medals. She's running for progress, for equality, and for her daughter.
I feel like becoming a mother changed me in every possible way. I mean, it showed me how strong I was.
In 2018, Felix, just 32 weeks pregnant, was admitted to the hospital with severe preeclampsia, a life-threatening complication. Her daughter, Cameron, was born weighing 3 pounds, 7 ounces. I'm sure nothing else mattered. This didn't matter.
I was literally just sitting there watching her fight, every single day. Running was, the furthest thing of my mind. All my energy was going into just making sure that she was okay.
Cameron spent a month in the NICU, and then, lo and behold, she's out watching you run.
I can't believe how far we've come.
But the road back to competition wasn't easy. At first, Felix could barely walk. 30 minutes on a treadmill left the elite athlete in tears. People kind of expect you to be Superwoman.
Yeah, and you expect yourself to be able to be Superwoman as well. Then you go through a real-life experience, and you are just grateful for your life.
That experience also led Felix to activism, testifying before Congress about black maternal mortality.
We need to provide women of color with more support during their pregnancy.
And penning a raw op-ed about her frustration with her now former sponsor, Nike, writing, I asked Nike to contractually guarantee that I wouldn't be punished if I didn't perform at my best in the months surrounding childbirth. If I, one of Nike's most widely marketed athletes, couldn't secure these protections, who could? Nike declined. The way you stood up for women of color, mothers, it was a big risk.
It was terrifying. There had been silence around, the culture of pregnancy and sport for too long, and what I was experiencing, I just couldn't sit back and just let it go.
Soon after she and others spoke out, Nike announced expanded protections for pregnant women. And this year, Felix started her own shoe company on her terms. Now admired as much for her advocacy as for her athleticism.
This is so much bigger than just running fast. It's showing women that we can be present at home, and we can also thrive in our profession. It's showing my daughter, can you stay the course, and can you keep doing things the right way, with character and integrity.
What a great story. Great ending to that story. Let's bring right now Carrie Champion and Kenny Mayne. And Carrie, I'll tell you what, the family knows something about preeclampsia and preemies. Jack was a preemie, and Susan had preeclampsia, and it is life-threatening, and it is hell for the mom especially, but the entire family, and she's gotten through that, and I'm sure that incredible story is something that you've already talked about on Tokyo Tonight on Peacock. Talk about her big win today.
I think what Allison, we've been, which is great, we got it right this time. We have been, you know, promoting her in a way in which she deserves her flowers. So often we forget to do that for these amazing athletes. But Allison's story is so very special for the reasons in which you all just showed, because of what she had to go through, how she stood up for mothers. And then this win, to me, really solidifies her place in athletic history in terms of the greatest. And what she's doing, not only as an athlete but as a mother, is unheard of. There is so much, I guess, hesitation for a lot of athletes to have, right? Especially women are like, oh, can I have a kid? Can I go back and recover? It's considered taboo. And she's making it in vogue, if you will. I don't know if you know, she sponsored 9 other athletes who wanted childcare so they can bring their children there. So for her to go off and do this in her last Olympics, because she said it is her last Olympics, and then ultimately turn around, get a bronze, could be the most decorated if she wins in the relay, and all the while being such a very powerful advocate for mothers and athletes. This is a phenomenal story, and it just cements her legacy.
Kenny, it is a great story. You know, when she was when at the beginning of that package with Bless Her Hope, when she was talking about, hey, I found out how tough I was when I was a mother. I was like, yeah, that'll show you how tough I was. Then she adds on preeclampsia. Then she adds on being in the NICU for a month, which Jack was. And I'll tell you what, that guts you as a parent. I can't imagine going out after that and getting back to top world-class form, and then taking on Nike and fighting Nike for other women, and keeping her head down, plowing ahead, and achieving this today. My God, this is such a great story.
Yeah, we're big fans. I got to interview her long ago. It turns out Carrie knows her obviously much better than I. I'm impressed with all the women, not just her. She's done amazing things. I'm friends with Sue Bird. I love what the WNBA women have done. Really the leaders, you know, in so many ways, politically, culturally. By the way, I want to thank you for running a commercial and a piece between us and the right-wing pastors to get the separation. Jesus, yes, you guys we should the Bible, I believe. But, you know, look what Meg Rapinoe and the soccer players had to put up with. They had the last president, the apprentice guy, cheering openly against them. I mean, you talk about mental pressure to know that some of your country, 40% of your country, whatever its fault is against you, is you're representing your country, so they got bronze. I think the best and the worst of America is reflected every day in this Olympics.
Hey, Carrie, it seems like one of the storylines here is really the success of the American women at these games. Athletes, of course, the soccer team did medal, U.S. basketball team rolled to the gold, beach volleyball, indoor volleyball. The list goes on and on. The women's sports have really done well in Tokyo. So beyond that, though, I'm curious, what are your thoughts here on what will be the legacy of these games? They're about to wrap up. We've only got a couple days left. They've obviously been playing in the shadow of the pandemic. At least so far, not done yet, although there have been COVID cases, not a huge outbreak. What will you take from these games? How will you remember Tokyo in years to come?
Poor baby.
That's a great question. I've been asking our guests. We've had, as we just talked about, so many guests on the show these past 2 weeks, and I said, what do you think about these games? What does it feel like? What do you remember? And most have said, in the most honest way, they had such a tough year and a half pandemic. It was so hard for them to train. The training wasn't the same. They didn't have the same access or visa courses, but they're just so grateful that they're able to be here. My biggest takeaway is arguably, especially when we talk about the women, is the resilience. They have been able to push through. And look, Allison at one point, talking about her winning, at one point, Allison was training in her neighborhood, running on the pavement in her neighborhood streets early on in the pandemic. And I think that this, no matter what we take away from the games in terms of the pandemic, the resiliency of these athletes and the willing to push forward no matter what and be their authentic selves, right? We had some lives, talk honestly about, I'm not okay. In fact, Naomi Osaka say that. I think this has been such a wonderful juxtaposition of the warrior that we are supposed to see as athletes, and then that true human, that humanity, that fragility that we have to stand because they have to be honest with people. If anything, this last year and a half has taught us that passion we're seeing.
Kenny.
Lead the way.
I'm just going to echo what Carrie just put well together, and also don't listen to Kirk Cousins, and also congratulations, Mika, your brother, got the ambassadorship job there in Poland. I was up for that position, and didn't work out for this time, but I'll be back.
All right, and American democracy weeps, Kenny. Next time. Next time. All right, Gary Champion and Kitty May, thank you so much. We will see you as we always do on Tokyo tonight at 7:30 p.m. Eastern on Peacock. We love having you on. Thanks so much. That does it for us this morning. Stephanie Rule picks up the coverage right now.
No invite needed, no dress code, no icebreakers. This is how we do it on the West Coast. 19 crimes, Cali Rose. This is how we Rose.
Speaking of that state, health officials are warning Texas is experiencing the steepest rise in COVID-19 hospitalizations since the pandemic began. The surge is placing a big strain on the Texas healthcare system, with hospitals now dealing with a staffing crisis. Here's one example quoted by the Texas Tribune, quote, Texas nurse Jenna Price gets half a dozen solicitations a day from hospitals and staffing agencies that want to pay her 4 times her current salary to leave her job at a suburban Central Texas emergency room and take a temporary assignment in another hospital that needs nurses. The COVID burnout is causing nurses of all specialties to leave the profession in droves. There currently are 23,000 more unfilled jobs in Texas for registered nurses than there are nurses looking to fill them. Let's bring in Dr. Esmail Porsa. He is president and CEO of Harris Health System, located in southeastern Texas, which includes the city of Houston. Dr. Porsa, thank you so much for being with us this morning. Just give us a snapshot of, if you could, of what's happening inside your hospital right now. How many cases are you seeing, hospitalizations, and how different is that from just, say, a few weeks ago?
Good morning. Thank you for having me. Let me start, as always, by thanking all our healthcare staff, doctors, nurses. Specifically in my system, Harris Health System, we've been dealing with this pandemic for now more than a year and a half, and also all healthcare staff here in Harris County, in the state of Texas, and in the U.S., and actually everywhere. To answer your specific question, the numbers are going up. The numbers are going up rapidly. The point that I made not long ago was the fact that it's not so much that the numbers are going up. The rate at which the numbers are going up is unprecedented. This is now a 4th wave of COVID-19, and again, the rate by which the numbers are going up is incredible. I made a point that in the previous surge, for us to go from a baseline level of patients and cases in our areas to a high similar to what we have right now, took us about 12, 13 weeks. It has only taken us 5 weeks to do that this time around. Less than about a month ago, in my system, we had a total of 11 COVID-19 patients. That number today is 111. So there's a 10-fold increase in the number of patients. It's just a matter of 5 weeks.
So, Dr. Porsa, we've heard that this is a pandemic now of the unvaccinated. How many of the cases inside your hospital are among vaccinated people?
That is probably the most important point that I would like to get across here. This is a pandemic of the unvaccinated. Look at my numbers this morning. Unfortunately, since January 1 of this year, my system has lost 128 people related to COVID-19 infections, 128 deaths across the Harris Health System due to COVID-19 infection. Not a single person that has lost their lives due to COVID was vaccinated, fully vaccinated. Not a single person. That's 0%.
Wow.
People.
Sorry, Doctor, what about the current hospitalizations? I mean, that tells the whole story, the number you just gave us. But right now, as we look at this Delta variant spreading in Texas and Florida and other places across the country, how many of your hospitalized patients are vaccinated?
Less than 2%. So 98%, more than 98% of the people who are currently hospitalized in a regular hospital bed or ICU are those who have not been vaccinated. More than 98%.
Dr. Esmail Porsa, President and CEO of Harris Health System in Texas. Thanks so much for being with us this morning.
T-Mobile gives you more ways than ever to get out there. We're America's largest 5G network. So get out there. Take the epic iPhone 12 with 5G with you. Current and new customers can get up to 4 on us. Experience it with our new Magenta Max plan with unlimited premium data that can't slow down based on how much smartphone data you use. And connect your devices on the go. Plus 40 gigabytes of high-speed hotspot data included. That's right. Unlimited premium data in the iPhone 12.
My house.
Get out there with T-Mobile, the leader in 5G.
Let's talk about the explosion of COVID cases and hospitalizations across the country, with Florida leading the way. Let's bring right now Morning Joe Chief Medical Correspondent Dr. Dave Campbell. And Dave, Florida, my God, it is once again the epicenter like it was last summer. And unfortunately this summer, less masking and more resistance even from the Florida governor.
That's true, and we really look to the National Voice of Reason, Dr. Frieden, the former CDC director, who points out that vaccines are safe, they're effective, they minimize severe disease and hospitalizations, and our numbers in Florida are pointing that out. We also know that in areas where mask wear is down and vaccination rates are low, that we're seeing these explosive surges of COVID. Florida, for example, right where I am now in Palm Beach County, the two hospitals right next to me have quadrupled their number of patients. Gardens Hospital is about double what it was at its worst last summer and a couple of surges ago. Jupiter Medical Center, where I'm working, has at least 50 patients in the hospital, and I checked a couple months ago and they had a couple. So we're really exploding down here in South Florida, and some of the hospitals are stopping elective surgery. It's really a big deal. I spoke to Dr. Leslie Diaz, Joe, the regional expert in infectious diseases, and she had a particular take on this. And as a treating doctor, she has dozens and dozens of COVID patients under her care. She says it's ironic when an unvaccinated patient comes in the hospital with COVID, with severe illness or critical illness, or just needs to be in the hospital, they are very willing to take experimental protocol drugs, but they were unwilling to take what they thought was the experimental vaccine. It's very strange, and we're all paying the price for that behavior right now, Joe, down here in Florida.
Well, and let's talk about also, again, all of us know people that have had breakthrough cases, people that got vaccines that ended up getting COVID, but from everything I've heard, not only across Florida, but across the United States, the people who are having the most severe complications and dying are almost overwhelmingly of those who are unvaccinated. Is that still the case in Florida?
That is, the vast majority of patients that are in the hospital are unvaccinated. We heard the figures from Texas earlier today on Morning Joe, and that is reflected down here in Florida. It's an overwhelming figure. Unvaccinated people are having hospitalizations, serious illness from COVID, and those that are vaccinated, far, far less worry. Although we, of course, have concerns about the current Delta variant and future variants. If we fail to rein in this explosive growth, not just in the United States, Joe, but across the world.
Yeah, and unfortunately, there are other variants out there that may be even more dangerous than the Delta variant that could be coming our way. We're now starting to read about those variants if we don't get vaccinated. Dr. Dave Campbell, thank you so much. As always, it's great talking to you.
This is Peacock. It's streaming, live sports, exclusive shows, and exclusive originals.
Very exclusive.
It's movies, main events, Modern Family, and much more. Freaking awesome! Streaming now.
This act flows from a clear and simple wrong. Its only purpose is to right that wrong. This law will ensure them the right to vote. The wrong is one which no American in his heart can justify it. The right is one which no American, true to our principles, can deny.
It was President Lyndon B. Johnson 56 years ago today, speaking about the Voting Rights Act of 1965. The bill made it illegal to impose restrictions on federal, state, and local elections designed to deny African Americans the right to vote. Presidential historian Doris Kearns Goodwin and Eugene Robinson are still with us, and joining the conversation, the president and CEO of the LBJ Foundation, Mark Updegrove, and founder and CEO of All In Together, Lauren Leader. Good morning to you both. Welcome. Doris, I want to start with you on this. As you watched President Johnson deliver that speech on August 6, 1965, and you consider the pressure he was under from a lot of people not to support and to push through the Voting Rights Act, that he was going to lose some of his base, he was going to lose the Southern vote, and he said famously, "What the hell is the presidency for?"
Oh, how I remember that day, actually. I was 22 years old. If I could have ever imagined after Bloody Sunday, when I was listening to President Johnson give the joint session of Congress speech that led to the passage of that voting rights, that a few years later I'd be working for President Johnson, and 10 years later would marry the man, Richard Goodwin, who had helped to craft those words. It was an extraordinary time. It was a triumph greater, as Johnson said, than any battlefield victory. The basic right to vote, he said, is the most fundamental of all rights, without which all the rest are meaningless. It's simply wrong to deny your fellow Americans the right to vote. How we need that clarity right now. The fight that is being fought right now to strike down voter rights, to bring back suppression, to undo what happened in 1965 is the fundamental fight of our time right now. I mean, it's not a partisan fight. In a democracy, this is the most important thing, to allow individuals. Otherwise, what's the point of a democracy if individuals can't vote? And the more of them that can vote freely, fairly, the more better that democracy will be. So remembering this day, it's a very emotional thing for me because it meant so much, but it should be an emotional memory for all the country to go back to that fight that we fought back then.
And Mark, how appropriate that we have Doris here today. As you pointed out in the break, her husband wrote the words that we just heard there from President Johnson. Can you speak to the pressure that I mentioned that he was under at the time and how difficult a leap this was for him? It seems obvious as we sit here in 2021, but what were the conditions around that push to get the Voting Rights Act passed?
Well, he had put all of his political capital into passing the Civil Rights Acts in 1964. And there was a very potent plank in the Civil Rights Act around voting rights. And he stripped it out because he knew that the bill was top-heavy. It simply wouldn't pass through Congress. So he looked at civil rights incrementally. Let's break the back of Jim Crow first, and then we'll move on to voting rights when we have the opportunity to do so. But in the meantime, he looked for every means necessary to ensure that voting rights were enforced. Then Bloody Sunday happened. That brutally thwarted civil rights and voting rights march from Selma, Alabama to Montgomery, Alabama, led by, very famously by John Lewis. And then LBJ realized he had the moral authority to push something through. And he seized that moment and gave that magnificent speech written by Doris's late husband. And that he appealed to the country to say, you need to this is not right. This is fundamentally un-American. And eventually he saw to the passage of the Voting Rights Act.
So Mark, let me stay with you for a second here. We're seeing, of course, right now, an assault with Democrats now voting rights across the country. States, the state legislatures are restricting access to the ballot, and there's been a lot of pressure on Joe Biden to defend voting rights. A similar position, perhaps, as LBJ, who gave a powerful speech in Philadelphia weeks ago. Biden, like Johnson, preachers of the Senate. They know how the body works. There's a lot right now on why people want Biden to come out against the filibuster, to eliminate it or modify it. How do you think President Johnson would have handled a situation like this?
I think he would have run over anybody who got him. But he was also an institutionalist. He was also a traditionalist. He was a creature, as you pointed out, Jonathan, of the Senate. Biden was in the Senate far longer than LBJ. 36 years, longer than any president we've ever had. He understands his traditions. And I think he's very resistant to break them down. By the same token, what we don't know right now is what's happening behind the scenes. One of the crown jewels of the LBJ Presidential Library Archive are the taped telephone conversations of LBJ during the business of his presidency. And you can hear in those tapes what he's doing behind the scenes, getting people to bend to his will. Joe Biden may well be doing that now, and we might not know it for years and years. So that's because he has those relationships, because he understands politics, And the way things work, that may be happening as we speak.
Ooh.
Angie's List is now Angie, and summer is the perfect time to book your next home project. From landscaping to lawn care to the project of your dreams, Angie connects you with top pros and protects you with a happiness guarantee when you book and pay at Angie.com. Angie, and done.
Breaking economic news now. The July jobs report crossed just moments ago. The U.S. added 943,000 new jobs. 845,000 were expected. And the unemployment rate fell to 5.4% in July. Let's bring in NBC News senior business correspondent and MSNBC anchor Stephanie Rule. Steph, talk about the numbers and tell us where you're coming from this morning.
Well, this is very good news, but it's complicated news. And we have to remember that this number is backward looking.
That's a dope setup, huh,
that we're facing right now around the Delta variant. The number you're looking at doesn't account for any of that. Right now, any of our kids could face their schools closing, daycares closing, campus closing because of the COVID outbreak. That's going to impact workers, their parents, who've either just gotten back to work or they're trying to go back this fall. But the biggest thing we're trying to focus on is what do wages look like? Because I've spent the last 2 days talking to people right here in Philadelphia and across the country, and whether they're people who are just getting new jobs or people who've had jobs the last year, wages are going up, but they're not moving up as quickly as inflation is. Try to buy anything right now, Joe, anything out there, think prices are up. So even though these job numbers are good, it's good to see people back on the job. People are very concerned that they can't afford the lifestyles they were living even a year ago.
And of course, this is again, Stephanie, good news. At the same time, these numbers are backward looking. They're before the hit that we're seeing from the Delta variant. And what kind of drag do you fear that may be on the economy?
Joe, it could be a very big drag. Think about all of these return to works. Businesses, every single day in the last week, we've been hearing from different companies that are pushing back their return to work date. That just doesn't impact families. It impacts all the ancillary businesses that are planning for businesses to go back online. When that gets pushed back, it hurts all of us and it hurts the economy. And for so many parents out there, if kids don't go back to in-person learning, that impacts whether they're going to be able to go to work.
Yeah, and where are you right now?
Right now, I'm in Philadelphia at Reading Terminal Market, talking to all these vendors here. They've been open over the last year, but they continue to have a problem hiring people. And over the summer, they were actually able to hire a lot of teens, seasonal workers, thinking they would get their full-time workers back this fall. But if COVID continues to spread, the Delta variant, they're going to have a problem.
You have to buy every tool, Dan? Honest question. Do you know what this does to making the most of his gym membership, Dan? I'm here for moral support. You're doing great, Tammy. The new City Custom Cash Card automatically adjusts to where your spending is trending.
Let's bring into this conversation the Republican governor of Maryland, Larry Hogan. Yesterday, Governor Hogan announced new vaccination protocols for state employees. Effective September 1st, employees in 48 state facilities will be required to show proof of vaccination or to adhere to strict face covering requirements and submit to regular ongoing COVID-19 testing. Governor Hogan, good morning. Thanks for being with us. So explain this decision.
Well, look, this Delta variant is something that we're very, very concerned about here in our state, in spite of the fact that we're one of the most vaccinated states in America and have some of the lowest metrics and virus numbers. Just like the opposite of all the things you've been talking about this morning. We're doing great. But this Delta variant is 2 to 4 times more contagious, and it's potentially more serious, more dangerous. More serious illness comes from it, and so we took actions to protect folks in congregate living facilities. So the folks that work in our prison system, that work with our veterans and our nursing homes, retirement. We're taking care of kids in juvenile justice systems, and all of our public health, the state of Maryland's health department facilities. And because we've done great, we're 76% of our state, everybody over 18 has been vaccinated, 94% of our seniors. But this variant is pretty scary stuff, and it's spreading like wildfire across the rest of the country, where where they haven't vaccinated as well as we have.
So this is a pretty strong move, and it raises a question about schools. There's been resistance from governors, Republican governors in particular, about mask mandates in schools. There's been talk about requiring vaccinations for teachers to be back inside schools. Do you believe that's a step that you should consider, vaccinating teachers, requiring that teachers be vaccinated?
Well, we were the first state in the country to begin vaccinating teachers. We did it back in January, and most of our teachers are vaccinated. Our local school systems are duly elected in each county, and they have the right to make decisions. We're going to make sure we get all of our kids back in school. One part of that was getting all the teachers vaccinated. The other, some of those school systems have made the decision to require masks, and we support their ability to make those decisions based on the metrics on the ground in their particular jurisdiction.
Hey, Governor Hogan, good morning. It's John from here. I want to stay on the topic of masks. You just mentioned schools. But where are things now in terms of potential mask requirements or restrictions for other things, like, say, indoor dining or gyms or indoor entertainment? Give us, we're seeing a fierce debate about all those things in states across the country with very different outcomes. Where do things stand in Maryland?
Well, the good news is here in Maryland, because we're so vaccinated, the virus is not spreading like the rest of the country. You were talking earlier about Florida, which had 21,800 cases in a day, and we had 500. They've got 10,000 people in the hospital. We have 300. So we're in a different spot than a lot of states, but we lifted our mask mandate back in May because our health metrics are so good, among the best in the country. But we're strongly recommending and urging people who are unvaccinated to wear masks indoors and in any settings where they can't distance. 100% of our hospitalizations and deaths at this point are people who have refused to take the vaccine.
You know, a couple years ago, Governor Hogan, you launched a national effort to improve infrastructure across this country. And you're also the national chair of the No Labels organization, that's getting behind the bipartisan infrastructure bill. And No Labels is out with a new ad that argues that the American people should ignore extremes on both sides of the aisle and help pass the bill. Let's take a quick look at the ad, and then I want to talk to you about it.
We've seen this movie before. No, not those movies. This one.
We will not support bipartisan legislation.
I'm telling the Republican senators that we're not going to stand for it.
The extremes on the left and right are trying to defeat a two-party solution for partisan purposes. 3 out of 4 Americans agree on the infrastructure bill that creates jobs, helps families, doesn't raise taxes, and powers America to beat China. Don't listen to the extremes. Support bipartisan infrastructure now.
There's a number there, Governor Hogan, 72%. And my gosh, most polls I'd say show that an overwhelming number of Americans support this bipartisan infrastructure bill, Joe Biden's infrastructure plan. And yet you're still hearing people on both sides saying, kill the bill. Why should those voices be ignored? And why should we push through and pass a bipartisan bill?
Well, look, this is something that Republicans and Democrats have talked about really for decades without ever accomplishing anything. And as we all know that with all the dysfunction and divisiveness in Washington, rarely ever do we find bipartisan compromise on an important issue. And on this one we have. No Labels didn't just get behind this effort. We actually started the effort and crafted the current proposal that's about to be passed in the Senate. Right here at the Governor's Mansion in Annapolis, we brought, for the first time, unprecedented, Republican and Democratic governors, senators, congressmen, and hammer out the basis of this deal. No Labels, the Problem Solvers Caucus, which is a part of our group. From the center, we got Democrats and Republicans trying to come up with a solution, and now it's about to pass. And of course, you've got Donald Trump saying to blow it up, that they shouldn't vote for it because he didn't accomplish anything on infrastructure for 4 years. And you got the far left saying, well, we didn't get everything we wanted. Well, that's not what compromise is about. It's about trying to find that middle ground where we can all reach agreement. And amazingly, we have. And we just got to get it done. I'm hopeful that it's going to pass the Senate tomorrow.
Governor, we also have a police reform bill out there and several other bills that Republicans and Democrats are working together on. Is there a reason for us to be hopeful that Congress might start getting some things done for the American people, that Democrats and Republicans may figure out a way in Washington to work together again?
Well, Joe, I sure hope so. I mean, it's desperately needed. Washington is broken. I think an overwhelming majority of Americans are not happy with things not getting done, with the extremes of both sides simply, calling each other names and fighting all the time. That's why I took over as the chairman of No Labels. It's why I've been focused on bipartisan solutions, common sense solutions. And we've got a great group of senators and congressmen that are part of the problem solvers that are working hard on this. And I'm hoping the infrastructure bill, let's get that done and show to them that things actually can get done in Washington, and maybe we'll tackle some of the other issues where we can find people. I mean, I can tell you the two caucuses don't like the fact that Republicans and Democrats are sitting down together and talking. They want to control their members. But I think this is the way, our Democratic Republic is supposed to work. And I think it's what the American people want. They want us to work together and get things done.
All right, Governor Larry Hogan, thank you so much, first of all, for your work on infrastructure over the past several years and pushing for this initiative, and also, obviously, your work on trying to achieve a bipartisan compromise. We appreciate you being here this morning. Willie?
Angie's List is now Angie, and summer is the perfect time to book your next home project. From landscaping to lawn care to the project of your dreams, Angie connects you with top pros and protects you with a happiness guarantee when you book and pay at Angie.com. Angie, and done.
It's Thursday, August the 5th. Nick has the morning off, Willie, of course, because, when Nick has the morning off, where is she? She's in the south of France. We usually don't mind that. I don't know if she gets there as quickly as she does, and then she comes right back, but she's got a reason this morning to be in the south of France, celebrating, I suppose. Not that any of my relatives have been named ambassadors to important geostrategic countries, but Mark Brzezinski, the ambassador.
Are either, sending my two kids to school. I have an autistic son, and my older son has ADHD as well as is high risk. So it's a difficult decision between sending them to school and masking up and hoping and praying, or
forgot about that
and struggling through their education, them not getting what they need. It's a very tough situation. I kind of feel like I'm between a rock and a hard place right now. So.
I can only imagine. Veronica, I would love to hear how you were processing this all as well, but also, as you have become public with this lawsuit, what is the reception? What have you heard from others in your community?
Gosh, when Ashley and I were talking about it last night when we got home, even when we walked out of the courthouse, we had both of our phones, we couldn't have our phones on us during the hearing, but our phones were blowing up with messages of support. I've had people calling and writing me messages saying thank you, that, because all the parents in the state are going through the same thing. And I know, it is that rock and a hard place where we're trying to figure out how do we let our kids have some normal childhood while also making sure that they make it through childhood.
Right. I mean, actually, I think we've seen a lot of video of parents going to school board meetings, to town council meetings, and really raging against this idea of mask mandates. What we have heard less of is voices like yours who are concerned, moms who are concerned about the other possibility, which is that you will send your kid into a scenario where they are not protected. And we have lots of mandates in this country, including sort of a mandate to wear your seatbelt. Federal law prevents state and local governments from discriminating against people with disabilities. A few examples, there are many more. What do you think, though, is behind the visceral anger that so many parents feel about their children having to wear masks?
I think a lot of it is politically driven. I think all of it's politically driven. I think that, unfortunately, when all of this happened, we had a president who very much politicized the entirety of this pandemic. And I'm not quite sure how people are reconciling it in their head that, they don't need to keep their kids safe. But it's unfortunate. It's frustrating. It's disheartening to see. However, I just believe that we've got to be louder than minority of people that have been so loud against mask mandates.
Veronica, I want to give some context to our audience who might not be in your state, which is that the vaccination rate in your state is at 37%. So it ranks second in the country for new cases per capita, according to Johns Hopkins. Those numbers, of course, not where you would want them to be. In your opinion, what more needs to be done in Arkansas to make it safer for you, for your kids, for educators, for everyone who is walking into those school buildings?
Well, I would like to see people getting vaccinated if you can. I would like to see everybody wearing masks. We have the choice right now, but, we know that masking is going to help reduce the spread. Also, there's a lot of businesses that are calling their employees back into the offices right now, into cubicle environments. We have, gatherings and parties that are going on, that state leaders are attending, and I get that they're vaccinated, but we're past the point right now where, anybody can safely really gather based on the numbers. And so, I'm not a scientist, I'm a mental health therapist, but I see a momentary pause where we could get this under control, to get our healthcare workers some relief, and to protect our teachers and our students. Just a momentary pause where everybody can make a sacrifice is going to help us years down the road when we have less disability, less trauma, less people unable to work because of what they've experienced with long COVID, death and loss. I mean, this is bigger than just, are you going to survive or not with COVID? It's a lot of stuff that goes into it.
Veronica, Ashley, thank you both so much for your time. Next, 2 years after America's largest ICE raid in Mississippi, anti-immigrant rhetoric on the rise again. Journalist Maria Hinojosa, who is in Mississippi reporting on this, joins me. Plus, did the Cuomo investigation by New York's AG just create the blueprint for investigating those in power? More American Voices after this.
Introducing the new City Custom Cash Card, a different kind of card that rewards Rashida where her spending is trending. Just ask overly confident DIY Rashida.
Wait, is this the right wall?
Or last-minute gift shopping Rashida.
I'm putting a bow on it.
Even sneaking away for a vacay Rashida.
I've earned this, okay?
From home improvement, drugstores, select travel, and more. Earn 5% cash back that automatically adjusts to your top eligible spend category, up to $500 spent each billing cycle. This is what freedom smells like. And this is what freedom smells like. Enjoy 30 days of open road freshness for Breeze Car.
Tuesday voices are on weekend mornings on MSNBC. Saturdays, Tiffany Cross takes on today's crucial issues.
The end of the pandemic gets closer every day. Yet faceless vaccine conspiracy.
Make it more right, so.
And Sundays, Jonathan Cato asks the most pressing questions about biggest newsmakers.
What happened to Colonial Pipeline? Were you surprised, or did you see this coming?
The Cross Connection and The Sunday Show. Live Saturdays and Sundays beginning at 10 on MSNBC.
It was destroyed in 79 AD, by the way.
What's the volcano called?
Volcano.
Alexa, what volcano destroyed Pompeii? Mount Vesuvius.
Mount Vesuvius. For real.
Hey Google, turn the TV.
They're here! Seasonal favorites from Imperfect Foods, the grocery delivery service on a mission to build a better food system by offering imperfect foods that are still perfectly delicious, like fresh fruits and vegetables, meat and dairy, exclusive items you won't find anywhere else. And you can fill your pantry with all the snacks and grocery staples you need. With reliable delivery once a week, grocery shopping has never been easier or more responsible. Perfect.
Shop now. Get 20% off your first 4 orders with code PERFECT4 at imperfectfoods.com/TV.
This isn't dry food or wet food. It's not burnt brown color.
The farmer's dog makes it simple to feed your dog real food. It's real meat and veggies, freshly made, developed with vets, delivered right to your door. That's why dog lovers are choosing the farmer's dog. A smarter, healthier pet food delivered. Visit tryfarmersdog.com and get 50% off your first box of food.
Tony here from creditrepair.com. Taken to the streets to talk about credit. What's a good credit score? Go.
600.
Maybe if you're trying to pay thousands extra in interest rates. Cut the confusion at creditrepair.com.
The Sleep Number 360 smart bed is on sale now. It's the most comfortable, dually adjustable, foot warming, temperature balancing, proven quality night's sleep we've ever made. Save up to $1,000 on select Sleep Number 360 smart beds and adjustable bases, plus no interest until January 2024. Ends Monday.
I want to feel connected to that history that I feel no connection to.
Part of understanding who we are is knowing where we come from.
Stanhope Castle? He lived in Stanhope Castle.
You have a castle in your family.
Join NBC News Now correspondent Simone Boyce on a journey to reveal the unknown stories of American icons and newsmakers.
Do you think we should cry during this?
American Identity on NBCNews.com.
Just two states, Florida and Texas, account for 1/3 of all new COVID-19 cases in the entire country. I say to these governors, please help. If you aren't going to help, at least get out of the way of the people who are trying to do the right thing. Use your power to save lives.
Joe Biden has taken to himself to try to single out Florida over COVID. So why don't you do your job? Why don't you get this border secure? And until you do that, I don't want to hear a blip about COVID from you.
Okay, that was Republican Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida this week trying to deflect the blame of his state's handling of COVID by placing it on one of the GOP's favorite punching bags, immigrants. And he is not the only one. Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds said immigrants are behind recent COVID spikes due to the southern border being, quote, open. Though, to be clear, the southern border is not open. In fact, Title 42, a Trump-era policy using COVID as a cover for expelling migrants, still in place under the Biden administration, angering many Democrats and immigration advocates. And Texas Governor Greg Abbott used COVID as a reason to issue an executive order to restrict the transportation of undocumented migrants within state lines. He is being sued for that by the DOJ. It comes as 18% of migrant families leaving Border Patrol custody tested positive for COVID. Migrants are always tested when they leave Border Patrol custody, according to DHS, and those who test positive are quarantined. Despite rising cases, Florida and Texas still railing against mask mandates, even in schools. Texas, as of now, does not require schools to alert parents of COVID cases on campus. Yes. But Eric Lutz argues in Vanity Fair that Florida and Texas are competing to see who can come up with the dumbest COVID rules, making the case for why both states are, quote, perhaps best described as pro-COVID. With me now, Maria Fosa. She is the president and founder of Digital Media. She is also the author of Once I Was You, a memoir of love and hate in a torn America. Maria, I want to get to where you are and why you were there, but before I do, a story that I do think intersects with the reporting that you're doing. You have states like Florida and Texas banning mask mandates, continuing to play politics with this virus, and now you have their governors blaming the COVID surge on immigrants. I would ask what is motivating them, but I think it is pretty apparent to you, to me, to our audience. So talk to me about that, but also about the consequences of that type of rhetoric.
Look, Alicia, I am in Canton, Mississippi right now. And in fact, in this region, as you know, Mississippi is a hot spot. There are many people who are sick right now in this community. But I'll tell you one thing, Alicia. Those people are not coming from Guatemala or Mexico and bringing COVID here. Those people are getting sick here. And part of the reason is, of course, they are essential workers. There are many of them working in poultry plants. And so therefore, if you're working in close proximity and there is a very strong variant, people are going to get sick. And the issue of vaccinations is still a problem, accessibility. So the rhetoric, what does it lead to? It leads to where we are here. Because 2 years ago, because of that rhetoric from the former President Donald Trump, they ended up doing the largest ICE raid in American history. Almost 700 workers were taken from plants that basically provide the chicken that you, me, your kids, my kids eat. And so there is a full circle in that sense because they become victimized because of the rhetoric and they are seen as a problem. And in fact, they are essential. They are feeding us.
Right, and when the impact of those raids hits the workers rather than hitting the employer who offered them employment in the United States. You know, sometimes, Maria, I think when we talk about these things, we talk about 700 people, right? It's not just those 700 people. It's their family, it's their community. It's not just someone who's no longer in line with you at work. It is someone who is not in the pews of your church. It is someone who is not, you know, picking up their kid with you at school. Talk to me about what this raid meant, both for those 700 individuals, for their families, and for the community where you are.
Well, Alicia, let me tell you, the day after I got here and I spent the evening reporting, I woke up in tears. I mean, it was like streaming tears. And the reason why is because, you know, some people don't even remember. They're like, oh, there was a raid? For these communities, it was 4 communities, for these communities, it was like an earthquake that never stopped. Like it kept rumbling and rumbling and rumbling because it was the first day of school on August 7th, 2019. Suddenly parents were not there to pick up their kids. And people were then put into detention for months, many deported. And many of them asked themselves, why did this happen? Some of the stories that I've heard, Alicia, are also, you know, there's so much hatred that is felt towards this community. They feel it. They feel the hatred. But you know why they're here? Like today, for example, they're here because of love. Love for their mom and dad in Guatemala or in Honduras or in Mexico. They love their family so much that they want to provide for them. Or, after the raids, when they were separated, they love their families so much here that they'll do anything to get back to this family here. So they are motivated by love. In fact, believe it or not, many of them say that they love to work in the poultry plants because it's honorable work. And as they say, Alicia, on that day, when this horror happened, and it was 9/11 right here, all these people say, estábamos trabajando. We were working, and for that, we were taken from our families.
Part of what I'm taken aback by the reporting that you've done so far, Maria, is how many of the people that you have spoken with have chosen to stay and to fight. When it comes to ICE specifically, what is it they want to see from this administration?
Oh, well, I think that they would like to see, since they were once deportable and now they've been declared essential, I think they would like to see an immediate expedited path to citizenship so that they can be calm, so that they can understand what their role is in this country. Because, Alicia, what I've just discovered in my reporting is that it's gone full circle. Because the raid happened, many were taken, lost their jobs, deported, separated. When they tried to get work again, they were told, don't come in here, you're undesirable. Soon after that, COVID hit. It ravaged these communities. There were workers who couldn't work in the plants, and then they needed the workers. And you know what, Alicia? Those same workers came in knowing that they were talking to those same bosses, and they got their jobs back because they were essential. So that, you know, one of the people who spoke to said, entonces fue todo un show. It was just a show. It was just a show to retaliate against a community that is getting increasingly politicized, that is increasingly becoming visible, and that's what's happening behind me. They're having a commemoration, a very small commemoration of the raids. You can hear them being loud, resilient music, but they're basically doing is la cultura cura. Our culture can cure ourselves. They're also doing attorney workshops, labor workshops, self-defense workshops, all across these communities, like in this trailer park where I am, and on a stone's throw from the poultry plant that has not stopped during the entire pandemic, and you know who's in there. These people are there feeding us.
Maria Costa, as always, thank you so much for your time and for your reporting. Next, how the investigation of New York Governor Andrew Cuomo was conducted and why some believe it is a blueprint for investigating people in power. And the dire warning by the U.S. to American citizens in Afghanistan, get out.
This is people. Extremists, not sports. exclusive shows and exclusive originals.
Very exclusive.
It's movies, main events, Modern Family, and much, much more. Freaking awesome! Streaming now.
There's an America we build, and one we explore. One that's been paved, and one that's forever wild. But freedom means you don't have to choose just one adventure. You get both. Introducing the wildly civilized, all-new, 3-row Jeep Grand Cherokee L.
Introducing the new City Custom Cash Card, a different kind of card that rewards Rashida where her spending is trending. Just ask overly confident DIY Rashida.
Wait, is this the right wall?
Or last-minute gift shopping, Rashida?
I'm putting a bow on it.
Even sneaking away for a vacay, Rashida?
I've earned this, okay?
From home improvement, drugstores, select travel, and more. Earn 5% cash back that automatically adjusts to your top eligible spend category, up to $500 spent each billing cycle.
So I joined up. When your guy loses an election, it's not a license to batter and abuse.
That was like the last
first thing anyway.
Aren't you guys right now pushing something that Republicans totally would agree with?
Do you think this is the end of the road in terms of the opposition to the Affordable Care Act?
I've been with them since
Upgrade your phone. Upgrade your network.
Lexington and Concord.
Looking to repair dry
This is like straight American Revolution shit.
It's just me, the Longs, Marcy and June. That's all Papa Murphy in the house. And this here Sturgis. Hey.
Hey, Sturgis.
Now Dish has dedicated teams monitoring your signal 24/7.
Wow. You really are from around here, are you?
I'm not from around these parts. I'm from
24/7. Are just like you and me. They look pretty messed up and live for a long time. But they're still just people. The ones I'm talking about, different. Radiation's rotted their brains, made them feral. They'll rip you apart just as soon as look at you.
That's why we're proud to be 1% for the planet's 2020
Figure Concord would be a safe place to settle.
To be a certified B corporation, to be organic, and to actually offset more carbon emissions than we produce. All to raise the bar for what it means to be a sustainable brand. Let's hear it. Learn more at allgreenmattress.com.
There's a crash vertibird up on the roof. Old school. Pre-war. Not a looks like one of the fabulous T45 tower.
Are you struggling to get a credit card? Download South. Established payment history while building towards your card security deposit. And after
What makes that power armor so special?
Oh, what a sick internalized servo system, that's what. Inside that baby, super is the new normal. You'll be stronger, tougher, resistant to rads, and get in the suit. Rip the minigun right off the vertical. Do that. Those raiders get you express tickets ahead.
They were so stress-free, the whole process was amazing, and I would definitely recommend them.
We are not a discount brokerage. These are top-level agents that'll get you the best
Now
results.
we're talking.
I know, right? Only there's one hit.
Sheriff today announced an investigation
Probably
into
been
New
dry for
Governor
100 years.
Cuomo. The
Can be
former
powered up
executive
again.
assistant filed a criminal
But we're a
complaint.
bit stuck.
Albany Sheriff says a misdemeanor charge against the governor is possible, but did not describe the contents of the complaint.
I'll help if
We're
I
not going to
can.
rush this because of who he is.
What you'll need is an old
because of who he
pre-war
is.
FC.
We're going to conduct a very comprehensive investigation, and when the facts and all of that and the evidence is compiled, we'll make a decision.
by the military and some companies way back
Robin
when.
Lynn have accused Cuomo of sexual harassment, including the
But we
former
can't
staffer
get to the
who
damn
filed his
thing.
latest
It's down in the basement, locked behind a security gate. Look, I fix stuff. I tinker. Bypassing security ain't exactly my forte. You can give it a shot.
I will, bitch. I will.
Putting your hand up a woman's shirt and touching their breast is not generational. I know plenty of guys who are older who would never in a million years do that.
That is not the sound that we were looking for. Do we have the sound that we wanted to play for Julianne?
Hello? Anybody in there?
We're gonna move on without it. What did your reporting, Julianne, reveal about the AG's approach?
Oh shit, I was supposed to answer your ass. I hate when that happens. Why? Where is it?
Investigators were aware from the start that this was part of the defense strategy in the governor's camp.
Yeah, Sturgis, shut the fuck up.
They learned about the investigation and who would be leading it. There were plans to see what I can do.
Well, all right.
Investigators and that it was going to be, leading to a predetermined.
Fuck, drop that shit again. No.
Noted, the governor's attorney said that yesterday as well. But the experts that I spoke to, sexual violence prevention advocates, have noted that this investigation is extremely significant.
You are right, Mama Murphy.
Beyond the governor's actions, and it shows the roles that other people in the governor's office played in enabling the harassment, and the role that the broader workplace culture played in facilitating it. So while it is specifically the governor who is accused of the sexual harassment claims, the report shows that there were many aides around him who didn't take meaningful action when their underlings and when more junior staffers came to them with their own allegations. Instead, some of the most senior aides, including women, they said that was actually the protection rather than that of the women. And the report shows the role that the workplace culture, the fact that it was one that fostered this kind of loyalty and secrecy and fear of retaliation. All of those elements were really key in allowing this alleged harassment to proliferate. So by taking that sort of systemic analysis and looking at the roles that people around the governor played and that the workplace culture played, many experts that I spoke to said that this investigation is a model for how other investigations should be done to show that it really takes a village and a toxic workplace culture to allow this kind of harassment to take place.
Jill, I wonder if you agree with that assessment that the way this was conducted provides a blueprint moving forward. I also, though, Jill, want you to talk about sort of this back and forth that we've heard. We heard the governor saying in pre-tape remarks that some of this was just generational, that the PCO sound, and that
Well, first of all, I agree.
Death Claw.
This was the blueprint, and that
see, told y'all. Death Claw.
Horrible. The retaliation.
You are correct, Mama Murphy.
By not just the governor, but by his
associates
who were being loyal to him. But in addition to showing a toxic workplace,
yes, ma'am,
this shows crimes.
Mama Murphy.
It's not just that this is a civil action for a toxic
hush up, boy,
or a civil action for a sexual assault or a touching, but these are also crimes. And I think that the report lays out possible crimes. There has now been a criminal complaint filed, and it will be investigated. And I'm not going to draw a conclusion until all the evidence is in, but I think we can be guided by the fact that the defense so far has been to attack the investigator, attack the prosecutor, attack the complainants, not to say I'm innocent. It's really been attacking the process, saying I wasn't treated fairly. I didn't get to see in advance of the public release the transcripts of these complaints. That's not how the system works. And that doesn't say that he didn't do it. And the only time he says he didn't do it is by saying, well, there was a motive for this complainant to say this. She was running for office. That doesn't mean that her complaint isn't true and accurate. So I agree with everything that was said before and would add the criminal and possible civil complaints that could be filed against him.
We're tiny. We're tuning. We're all a little loony.
Dozens of officials calling for him to resign.
After it is cartoony, we're invading your TV.
Would replace him as governor.
The woman who would replace him as governor is currently the lieutenant governor,
So here's that because you don't have fun.
It's interesting the role that women are playing in this
expect the unexpected.
The Attorney General, Tish James, is the first black woman to be Attorney General.
I'm trying to tune, come on and join the fun. Get it? And now your phone is
seen what ends up happening.
And now our song is done.
Indeed, either is impeached or resigns, but women are certainly at the forefront of.
It just so happened the song matches what I needed to have to unlock the door.
His potential successor.
That's funny.
Julianne, thank you so much. Jill, this is normally when we do put a pin in it, but I am told that I am out of time. So if you were not following Jill Wine-Banks on Twitter, you were already missing out. And specifically when it comes to her pin, she will tell you why she chose the one she chose to wear tonight. Thank you both. Next, a new warning for folks in Afghanistan who helped America and its allies get out now. Plus, the vaccine divide, how the debate over shots is now weighing down personal connections. So how do you talk to people you love who refuse to get a shot?
Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah.
Reimagined, reinvented, recognized. Introducing the Monogram Professional Range. Exquisite design, revolutionary cooking precision, with the only gas burner to control heat down to the degree. We are redefining the world of luxury appliances, one detail at a time. Monogram Luxury Appliances.
I hope he wasn't fucking talking to my ass, cause this nigga.
Had to buy every tool, Dan?
Honest question. Do you know what this does?
To making the most of his gym membership, Dan.
I'm here for moral support. You're doing great, Tammy.
The new City Custom Cash Card automatically adjusts to where your spending is trending.
What makes Febreze Air Effects different?
The hell?
Cheaper,
Okay.
rely on artificial propellant.
It ain't the wire.
Febreze is a 100% natural propellant. Check it out. Pressure created by what's in your air makes the bottle spray.
That's
which
right.
means freshness everyone will love. Febreze.
Lots of expert help lined up tonight to help us get through the news.
Hey, when that happens.
They're now going
Gotta take a time out.
We have to be very
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
One reliability 16 times in a row.
That's why I got things. Shut the hell up, bitch.
Once again, that nobody builds networks like Verizon. That's why we're building 5G right. That's why there's only one best network.
Hell, look at all these damn messes. So no one not go for
We
that.
just lowered our auto rates. And savings like that. Jumping for joy. Now get new lower auto rates with Allstate.
No SAP.
Better protection.
No AE.
Costs a whole lot less. You're in good hands with Allstate. Click or call for a lower auto rate today.
Fuck you. That must have been drawn. Shut the fuck up, nigga.
Or it's safe to say. With ADT, it's safe to say.
Get out of here. Sturgis, I got this. I got this.
Save more lives than any other home security brand. It's safe to say.
Let's try again. Please don't have so many of the same. Too many of the same.
What matters most.
Look at that. Oh, fucking same shit, bro.
into the sky.
I cried out to Jesus and I asked him to just help me.
Zero.
Get out of this.
In the air, you could feel the reality of it.
Time doesn't heal, doesn't fix things, but time makes the trauma less sharp. It softens the edges.
That's a bunch of bullshit.
All U.S. citizens to leave Afghanistan. And immediately, the dire warning coming as the Taliban intensifies attacks on the ground But the Biden administration is worried about more than just Americans inside the country, but Afghan natives and their families who helped U.S. troops in the region. As Deborah Haynes of Sky News reports, the United States is not the only country working to get people out of danger.
These are the first images of one of a series of secret rescue flights to the UK from Afghanistan. On board, former interpreters and other staff who worked for Britain's troops and diplomats. They're seeking a new life in this country with their families, away from Taliban threats. It's a transition shrouded in secrecy because of security fears. We're not even allowed to say which Midlands airport this is. The location of quarantine hotels used by the new arrivals also a secret.
I am the witness of 8 people who were killed around my house by insurgents. They were coming just on motorbikes.
This former interpreter, who we're calling H, landed with his wife and 2 children on an earlier flight. Pictured here with British troops, he worked for the UK since 2011. It's a job the Taliban told him to quit. When he didn't, they murdered one of his brothers. Then, in 2014, he was attacked in the street.
So one person from the front door opened the door and punched me on my face as I suddenly broke my nose.
Do you think they wanted to kill you?
Of course. It was clear that they wanted to kill me.
He's grateful for the chance to relocate, but is worried for those who've been turned down, despite the UK offering a more generous resettlement scheme.
I could request the British government, please do not leave the people who work with you, do not leave them behind, because if the animals, killing machines, come to Kabul, they will kill us.
In Afghanistan, security forces are under pressure as the Taliban gains ground. It's prompted former military chiefs also to urge Britain to open its door wider to former staff, provided they don't pose a security risk.
If in doubt, get them out and show the generosity of spirit that reflects the fundamental nature of the relationship between those interpreters and the British Armed Forces.
Back at the quarantine hotel, this British Council employee has benefited from that spirit, along with her husband and 3 children.
Then you get better education to the UK, and also then you get better education to the UK, and also living in a stable society, in a prosperous and peaceful society, which we haven't been expected in Afghanistan, especially before.
Daring to dream after escaping a nightmare. Deborah Haynes, Sky News.
That was Deborah Haynes of Sky News reporting. Next, what to do about your friends who just won't get the shot. Real solutions to real-world problems. You don't want to miss this conversation.
As someone who resembles someone else, I appreciate that Liberty Mutual knows everyone's unique. That's why they customize your car insurance, so you only pay for what you need. I mean, just because you...
Up here. Boss! We got somebody up here!
Why don't you get down here? Show me that fancy gun up close. Not a lot of people could get past my boys. I'll give you that. Come on, I've got places to be. got something for you. Still waiting, asshole! Come on, I got places to be! Come on, I got places to be! Come on, I got places to be! Come on, I got places to be!
So trees, you won't take me down. When allergies attack, take Allegra.
Before your symptoms take over you.
Live your greatness.
We have many 18 and 20-year-olds in ICUs, on ventilators, even babies in pediatric ICUs in Louisiana. So while the attack rate for younger people is lower, it is not zero.
Over the last week, the CDC says there has been a 32% rise in young adults being hospitalized with COVID. Not only is Delta targeting young Americans, but Americans between 18 and 24 have the lowest rates of vaccination. A recent survey shows they're the most unsure about getting the shot. They aren't alone. Americans of all ages are skeptical, and chances are you know a friend or a loved one who is hell-bent against getting a shot. So how do you deal with them? Is there any chance of convincing them to do it? The new op-ed in the New York Times suggests shame, not the way, especially with young adults. Joining me now, the authors of that essay, public health researcher.
Yeah, please climb up here.
And journalist Rainsford Stauffer. Also with me, MSNBC political analyst Juanita Tolliver. Great to see you all. I really want to have
being
this
smart asses, call me girl and shit.
In our extended circles for whom this is true. Rainsford, I think shame is like a lot of people's go-to in general for a lot of things. You say when it comes to the vaccines, does not work, especially with young people. Tell me why.
I think the thing about shame is it's a very individual way to fix a structural problem. Setting individual boundaries with unvaccinated friends or family is a warranted personal decision, but we really need to be having a structural conversation. We need to be reducing barriers to access for people who are interested in getting the vaccine and want to, but are operating within structures that make that impossible. And in terms of young adults, for example, we know that a significant number in the United States are working in low-wage jobs where they're less likely to have paid sick leave to go get a vaccine when they experience side effects. But a recent poll showed that vaccination rates were higher among workers whose employers provided that paid time off. So we need policies and infrastructure that strengthen our social safety net to keep everyone, including young adults, safe. And I think that's really important to this conversation.
Abdullah, this is where Rainsford and I always agree, which is sort of this hyper-focus on the individual obscures this question of systems and structures. And at the same time, I think the reason it feels so urgent for so many people is because we want to believe that we can reach out to people we love who are still resistant. Abdullah, we've seen all types of emotional messages from unvaccinated COVID patients. Here's one from Virginia resident Travis Campbell. Take a listen.
I'm messed up big time, guys. I didn't get the vaccine. That's okay. I made a mistake. I did it. But I don't think that I'm responsibility high. So please, for the love of God, if you really want to have a chance, don't follow along. Follow the TV logic and social media. Just protect yourself.
What is that one?
What I think is so powerful about that is the reference to all of the TV and social media, right? That in addition to the structural problems, which is, do you have the time off? Do you have the access? There's also this question of the disinformation and the misinformation that has been so rampant throughout this pandemic. How do you undo that piece? How do you address that piece one-on-one?
It's difficult. I mean, it's really hard to try to have that conversation, especially if you're going against like podcasts or things that they say on Facebook. It'll take a long time, and they'll be patient. However, we also have data from the CDC about what young people are concerned about, and specifically young people who are unsure of taking the vaccine. And that data says they are really, really concerned about side effects, and that they haven't seen enough information about side effects. And that's how we can, if you want to have a conversation, listen to their concerns and, address the specific concerns. Chances are not everyone is a conspiracy theorist. Some people might just have, might have been receiving wrong information about the vaccine. And so that's what the data tells us. It tells us that the young people are really, really concerned about side effects.
Right. And Juanita, the other thing we keep hearing from public health professionals is that they know that a person's direct care provider is often the most trusted messenger. Part of the challenge with young people is that a lot of young people don't have a direct service provider. They may not have a GP who they go to regularly. They may not have health insurance. So Juanita, you are a messenger. This is the work that you do sort of at a macro level. Do you think that the message is resonating and landing, or do you think it is missing the mark?
Well, Alicia, it's clearly missing the mark based on these trends and the vaccination rates we're seeing among young people. And what they need to emphasize here is the efficacy, but also getting to an understanding of responding to why young people are not getting vaccinated. As Abdullah just mentioned, there's typically some explicit reason, whether it's no access to paid leave, whether it's concerns or questions still about the vaccines. Those can be answered, but I feel like with every piece of data we get, we need to translate that into easily accessible and actionable information for the general public. And that's how we can spruce up the messaging from all the public health officials, from the White House, from the CDC, to really streamline this so it's, again, something that's fully accessible and relatable, but actionable, so that young people can get the information that they need and thus feel safe getting vaccinated.
It does. One of the many pieces of pushback that people hear is about the emergency authorization used from the FDA. So I wonder both what you think the FDA's role is in all of this, and if you have a loved one for whom that is sort of the final frontier of this, what it is you say to them.
Well, I would say to them that there are processes in place to get the vaccine, that lots of people have gotten the vaccine and it's been a safe process. Some people have suggested that the FDA should fully approve the vaccines. But of course, that's a process that the FDA says that they are doing their due diligence to make sure that they go through all of the proper channels. And so what I would point to is the fact is that the FDA would not approve a vaccine even for emergency use if it was not safe. There are lots of presentations. There was a lot of the vaccine initially was developed. There were trials, right? It was ready months ago, but you have to go through the process of trialing it. Which will have 100,000 people in the trial. They had to present that data to the FDA, and then the FDA had to approve it. That process took months, and generally, we think that that was really quick, but still, it's because they got on the ball with vaccine development really early, as soon as the pandemic began.
Rainsford, beyond the structural piece of this, what is it you think that we're getting wrong about young people and the way we talk to young Americans about these vaccines?
Honestly, I think what we're getting wrong here is the same thing we tend to get wrong about young adults in general. We kind of approach young adulthood as though everybody is within this big monolith, everybody is living this kind of wild and responsibility-free time of young adulthood, and it ties into this invincibility narrative that every young person thinks they're invincible. But in reality, at the start of the pandemic, there was a lot of messaging about how young adults could afford to wait because they were lower risk. And that neglected immunocompromised young people living in multi-generational households, young people working on the front lines. So I think the more we can address the fact that young people have complex lived experiences and different needs, the more open conversations we can have about structural barriers and solutions.
Yeah, bitch.
Tell me what I missed.
This is not.
Come on!
This is why
I had the fucking dick.
It needs full investment, and again, more messengers, more trusted people getting out there, understanding why young people are not getting vaccinated and responding to those needs. So, if the White House is talking about we're going to give businesses resources so they can offer paid leave, which we know young people likely don't have, if we're offering other information, get that out there to young people and keep a steady drumbeat going.
Abdullah, Rains for Juanita, thank you all. More American Voices after this.
At T-Mobile for Business, unconventional thinking means we see things differently, so you can focus on what matters most. Whether it's ensuring food arrives as fresh as when it departs, being first on the scene when every second counts, or teaching biology without a lab, we are the leader in 5G, #1 in customer satisfaction, and a partner who includes 5G in every plan. So you get it all, without trade-offs. Unconventional thinking. It's better for business.
Helen knew exercise could help her diabetes, but she didn't know what was right for her. No. Nope. No way. But then Helen went from no to no. With Freestyle Libre 14 Day, now she knows what activity helps lower her glucose and can see what works best for her. Take the mystery out of your glucose levels and lower your A1C. Now you know. Freestyle Libre 14 Day, now covered by Medicare for those who qualify.
Seeing blood when you brush your floss can be a sign of early gum damage. New Parodontax Active Gum Repair kills plaque bacteria at the gum line to help keep the gum seal tight. New Parodontax Active Gum Repair Toothpaste. Turn up the heat. Let's see. It's dry. There's no hair time. Makes us wonder why we booked 15-second test steps. Dries instantly and keeps you protected for 48 hours.
Hey, what plan play?
I got this. I have Sling TV, so I watch tons of Sling movies. You know that scene where the president has to fight a plane? I watch it a lot.
Bitch!
We're confident you get the best.
I run this.
Get your first month now for only $10. Sling.
When you have nausea, heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, diarrhea.
Pepto-Bismol coats your stomach with fast and soothing relief. And try new drug-free Pepto Herbal Blend, made from 100% natural
speakeasy.
and peppermint.
Get $100 off only at liveouter.com.
What's in this speakeasy? I don't think I've ever been in here.
Credit score. Self is a new way to build credit that doesn't require a credit score. Plus, Self helps you save money every month and reports your payments to all 3 credit bureaus. Download the app today.
84% of people have subscriptions they've forgotten about. Truebill helps you save money by finding recurring charges, notifying you when they're due, and easily canceling unwanted subscriptions.
Oh, come on. I didn't even do that, all that.
Your money.
How to start your day with cleaner energy. Mix together your green tea, immune-boosting vitamins, elderberry, and electrolytes.
Come on!
Then throw that right in the garbage and drink 1 packet of Pure Boost Immune instead. Upgrade to all-in-one energy at pureboost.com.
That's it for today. I'm Alicia Menendez. I'm going to see you back here tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern, for more American Voices. But for now, I hand it over to Joshua Johnson. Hey, Joshua.
Hey, Alicia, thank you very much. And hello to you. It is great to be with you tonight. Tonight, the $1 trillion infrastructure bill is one step closer to becoming law. But one senator stands in the way of a final vote. So how soon can we expect one?
Elections in the Atlanta area could be under new leadership through a process Georgia Republicans have started. Last night, I spoke with one of Georgia's top elections officials. Tonight, Fulton County Commission Chairman Rob Pitts gives his response. Also, Florida breaks another record for daily COVID cases, nearly 24,000 cases just yesterday. The start of the school year is right around the corner. How concerned should parents be? And the future of travel. President Biden is pushing for 50% of new vehicles to be electric. How might that change the way you think about cars? From NBC News World Headquarters in New York, I'm Joshua Johnson. Welcome to the week. It's been Infrastructure Week all year long, but after months of negotiations, this week could soon be coming to a close. Today, the Senate
oh, buddy, that's just sad, buddy.
Cloture blocks any further debate on the bipartisan infrastructure bill. 18 Republicans joined Democrats in voting to advance this bill. The exact timeline of when and how it gets wrapped up is still in the air. Now the clock is ticking on 30 hours of debate over which amendments to include. Any amendments will require the support of all 100 senators before consideration. At the same time, there's also a big push to move forward on a faster path. If the Senate can agree on amendments and on shortening that 30-hour debate period, this process would speed up dramatically. Tennessee Republican Senator Bill Hagerty is blocking that faster path. His objection slows down a process that had seemed to be moving along at a slow but steady pace. Now, this week, the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office found that the bill would increase deficits by more than $250 billion over the next decade. Senator Hagerty is citing that report as his reason to hold up approval, and he reiterated that position today.
There's absolutely no reason for rushing this process and attempting to limit scrutiny of this bill other than the Democrats' completely artificial, self-imposed, and politically driven timeline.
Now, for Democrats, the goal is to get the bipartisan infrastructure bill finished so they can finally focus on President Biden's spending plan. Remember, the bipartisan bill is focused on so-called physical infrastructure, roads, bridges, tunnels, airports, that kind of thing. The other plan focuses on so-called human infrastructure. Democrats plan to pass that one along party lines through the budget reconciliation process. Now, regardless of Senator Hagerty's holdout, it's looking like this process will wrap up in the days to come. Here's how Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer described it today.
Them colas.
Essentially, he was saying
Coca-Colas are a must.
Or the hard way,
fucking death law.
Which way they will choose. Now, the debate in the Senate is focused on the amendments, the CBO scores, how this is going to be paid for. Senator Schumer's comment about easy versus hard got us thinking. Paying for infrastructure by raising taxes on the wealthy might not have been easy politically, but conceptually, it may have been much simpler. Identify what infrastructure projects you want to fund and pay for it with taxes on people making more than $400,000 a year. Simple, but not easy, because Democrats probably did not have the votes to overcome Republican opposition. So to make this a bipartisan bill, they chose an easier path without tax hikes. Easier, but not at all simpler. Moving this incredibly complicated bill forward has dragged on despite the outcome basically already being decided. Republican Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana says he expects to be in Washington until Wednesday. He told NBC Capitol Hill producer Julie Sirkin, quote, "The Senate is like a dumpster fire with animals." In the words of Auntie Mame, how vivid. Let's begin tonight with NBC political correspondent Allie Vitale. Is that dumpster fire any closer, Allie, to being put out? What is the status of the bill tonight?
I think you captured it so well because just before we were leaving the Capitol, Senator John Cornyn offered his own twist on the state of play there. He described it simply as impasse, that's your headline, and nothing below it. And that's frankly sort of where we've been all day. As the hours have passed since that initial procedural vote, many of the senators that I caught up with on the Hill or who we've heard from on cable news have all sort of had the same tension brewing. As they got closer to the end of the day, though, it's clear that those tensions were starting starting to simmer over, especially because everyone is in agreement at this point, Republican or Democrat, that eventually you're going to get to a place where you got to vote on this bill. It's just a question of whether you do it sooner or later. So, for example, Senator Tina Smith was on MSNBC earlier. This is how she laid it out.
Out of hope, but all is not lost. I can feel your son's energy. He's alive.
I'm listening.
Reform.
That just a handful of senators can slow down progress for the American people. That's what's happening, but we're going to get through it and we're going to get this done.
And when she says a handful of senators there, Joshua, it's the Senate. All it takes is one, and we're seeing that once again here. In this case, it's Senator Bill Hagerty who's saying that he's hung up on this over the CBO score that you were talking about, saying that this should go through regular order. That just means it's going to take longer. What senators right now are trying to do is hammer out a way to just truncate this process a little bit.
Maybe you'll bring me some chems later. The site will paint a clearer picture.
Crypto regulations. So there are pet projects tucked away within this that senators would like to get an amendment vote on. And what some of the senators pointed out as they were leaving the Hill today after, frankly, a defeated day that didn't end the way that they wanted it to, is that by holding up this process for whatever reason, they're stopping other senators, Republican and Democrat, from having their amendment heard on this process. So this is not a timeline that Democrats created. Frankly, the only clock that these guys are up against is the idea that they're supposed to be going on recess in a few days. The only thing they're grappling with here...
Oh, you can stay here, bitch.
With regards to the amendment, Senator Mitch McConnell, Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, spoke about that process earlier today. Here's part of what he said.
Better idea of what we should do next?
Yeah, bitch.
There are many outstanding amendments that are important.
Anyone? Now shut the fuck up.
Before the Senate is asked to vote on final passage of this bill. The full Senate deserves its full chance to shape this important legislation.
Ali, what is the tone tonight from Republican senators, including Senator Hagerty? Are there other Republicans who are kind of agreeing with him, or is everyone kind of ready to move this along on the GOP side?
There frankly may be one other Republican senator. That much isn't clear. Hagerty, for his part, says he's not changing his mind, but he also says that he's not holding up this process. I don't really know how he can say that because he is the one holding up this process. And Republicans would also say that he is. There are Republicans like Senator John Cornyn who have amendments that they would like to be able to put at play in this process. And because of the way that this is working out, their amendments are not getting moved on. And so when I asked Cornyn specifically about his amendment, I asked him why it wasn't getting moved on. He said stubborn senators. Really, most senators here, Republican or Democrat, want to get on this bill. They want to move forward with this. And from Democrats' perspective, I'd also point out, this is just part one. You laid this out in your introduction. Yes, they're moving on the bipartisan infrastructure bill, but immediately after that comes budget reconciliation. Right. That's the more partisan process here, but that's also the thing that the White House and Democrats have been really eager to trumpet, and that progressive groups have been really on them to keep alive in the Senate.
In our last few seconds, Ali, how did this bill not come in as paid for, at least in terms of the CBO score? I thought that was the whole idea behind saying, no, we don't have to raise taxes on the rich. We can do this another way. Clearly they couldn't.
Yeah, that was definitely one of the key issues, and it's part of why this group of 20 initially took so long hammering out these bills. It was finding out the different pay-fors. And so look, there are Republican senators who say Hagerty has a point when he points to what the CBO score actually laid out. At the same time, though, the CBO is not some partisan organization, and Democrats and Republicans have come together on this. This is a bipartisan bill. You're seeing it in the votes to just move it along, however quickly or slowly they end up doing it. But at the same time, this is a larger point that I've heard multiple lawmakers make, frankly, which is that, yes, this is about infrastructure, which has long been viewed as a bipartisan ideal. Right. At the same time, it's about showing that bipartisanship can actually still exist in Washington.
Thank you, Ali. That's NBC political correspondent Ali Vitale starting us off tonight. Let's continue now with Congressman Adriano Espaillat of New York. He is a Democrat on the House Appropriations and Education and Labor Committees. His district in New York City includes parts of Harlem, Washington Heights, and the Bronx. Congressman Espaillat, good evening. Welcome.
Thank you, Joshua. Thank you for having me.
So what's your read on where this bipartisan bill stands right now, particularly the plans to move on the spending plan after that?
I think it's a good step forward. It shows that the president is accomplishing a bipartisan effort on transportation infrastructure, road, bridges, and tunnels. I think that's a very popular bill. It's good for red states, it's good for blue states. These states are really in dire need of fixing their road, bridges, and tunnels, and they're really waiting for job creation as well. So this is an important one, and I think now we will get into the reconciliation process for the human infrastructure aspect of what we need to do for America.
Is there anything in particular in your district that you're looking forward to these bills providing funding for?
Oh, no question. I have the 2nd Avenue subway, the second phase of the 2nd Avenue subway, which is going right to be an economic stimulus to that neighborhood. It will create jobs. I'm working on the creation of a training center at City College that will provide jobs. So in essence, Joshua, this will promote fairness. For many years and decades, communities have seen these major infrastructure jobs and projects, and they don't really hit ground. They don't really hit the neighborhoods that are in dire need of the jobs. We're very optimistic that fairness will happen this time around, and we'll see jobs created in Harlem, East Harlem, Washington Heights, Inwood, and across America in neighborhoods that are really hurting.
What about the timing for these bills? House Speaker Pelosi has said she won't take up the infrastructure bill until the spending bill has been approved. We just learned, actually a few minutes just before I went on the air, that there's a group of moderate House Democrats circulating a draft letter to send to the Speaker, urging her to bring up the bipartisan bill immediately after it passes the Senate. That's something we can report that's new tonight. What do you think is the right way to go about this, process-wise?
The right way to go about it is exactly how Speaker Pelosi is proposing. The human infrastructure part of this initiative is so important. You have job training, daycare services. You have immigration reform in there, so critical for many communities. We must do that first. And now that we have a bipartisan agreement on transportation infrastructure, I think it's easier to do it in that way. I know there will be some members of Congress that will choose to maybe want to do it differently, but I think there's a general consensus that we should do the human infrastructure part first, and then take care of this bipartisan bill.
What about the political aspect of this? There's been recent polling from Monmouth that shows that President Biden's economic plans are politically, broadly speaking, rather popular. But this week, Politico reported that there's some new polling from the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, we call the DCCC, that showed Democrats trailing Republicans by 6 points on generic ballots in battleground districts. Here is what Speaker Pelosi had to say about that.
I always run from behind. You always have to run. So I have no comment about my colleague except to say he's a great chair of the DCCC, Congressman Sean Patrick Maloney from the state of New York. I'm very confident that we will win the House. In terms of the specific, where he was zeroing in on it, always run scared, and that's it.
Now, having lived in Nancy Pelosi's district for 6 years and seen her run for re-election, I'm not sure what she means by saying she always runs from behind. No, she doesn't. But I do understand what she's saying in terms of not taking anything for granted in terms of 2022. How do you see this in terms of how these infrastructure measures factor into the midterms possibly?
Well, we've done a lot for the American people. We help businesses with the PPP program. We help businesses with EIDL grants. We help families with the child tax credit. We help them with the stimulus check and the unemployment benefits. We've helped with the pandemic, providing billions of dollars for hospitals. We've done so much for the American people, and now, in addition to that, we're going to put transportation infrastructure on the table that will create millions of jobs. In addition to that, on top of that, transportation infrastructure on the table that will create millions of jobs. In addition to that, on top of that, a human infrastructure bill that will help families in such concrete ways. I think the American people will get that. And yes, I like to run from behind. I'd rather be the short guy with a chip in my shoulder in the room and maybe be underestimated by the folks but making sure that we show up when it really counts. I think we'll be there, we'll show up when it really counts, and we'll keep the majority.
Before I have to let you go, I have to ask you about the latest with Governor Cuomo. There are now a number of investigations after New York's Attorney General Letitia James released her very comprehensive report detailing the allegations from 11 women. You have called on the governor to resign or face impeachment proceedings. Based on everything that's happened this week, how do you see this playing out now? I presume you still would prefer to see the governor step down, but what do you think actually will happen?
Well, it's in the hands of the New York State and he will gather all the evidence to ensure that there's a process that goes forward, that is transparent and just. But listen, I think he should step down. I've said it in the past, and I say it now. Spare New York the hurt. That's the right thing to do.
New York Congressman Adriano Espaillat. Congressman, thanks very much for making time for us tonight. We appreciate it. Georgia Republicans have ordered a formal review of election officials in that state's largest Democratic county. The Fulton County Board of Commissioners chairman, Rob Pitts, joins us next. Plus, what does the Delta variant mean for the school year? A new report shows cases are up more than 80% among children in just the past week. We'll get into that as the week continues on MSNBC.
With relapsing forms of MS, there's a lot to deal with. Not just unpredictable relapses, all these other things too. It can all add up. Kesimpta is a once-monthly at-home injection that may help you put these RMS challenges in their place. Kesimpta was proven superior at reducing the rate of relapses, active lesions, and slowing disability progression versus Aubagio. Don't take Kesimpta if you have hepatitis B, and tell your doctor if you have had it, as it could come back. Kesimpta can cause serious side effects, including infection.
My stamina
While no
shit.
cases of PML were reported in RMS clinical trials, it could happen. Tell your doctor if you had or plan to have vaccines, or if you are or plan to become pregnant. Kesimpta may cause a decrease in some types of antibodies. The most common side effects are upper respiratory tract infection, headache, and injection reactions. Ready for an at-home treatment with dramatic results? It's time to ask your doctor about Kesimpta.
I'd be glad to help. Just tell me what you need.
We did it again. Verizon has been named America's most reliable network by RootMetrics, and our customers rated us #1 for network quality in America, according to J.D. Power. #1 in reliability 16 times in a row. Most awarded for network quality 27 times in a row. Proving once again that nobody builds networks like Verizon. That's why we're building 5G right. That's why there's only one best network.
Welcome to Allstate.
Alright, people, y'all know the deal. Subscribe, follow, all that good shit. Alright. I'll be back in a second, trying to break up these videos, because I be having them for way too long.
Here, things work the way you wish they would, and better protection costs a whole lot less. You're in good hands with Allstate. Click or call for a lower auto rate today.
Tony here.